I was video calling my unit from my apartment when the package arrived. "Happy birthday, Jocelyn." My sister's handwriting decorated the box. Commander Harrison's face went pale on screen. "Don't touch that box," he ordered sharply. "Step away from it now." My blood ran cold. "Sir, it's just from my sister, Sarah." His voice dropped dangerously low. "Look at the return label carefully." I leaned closer and saw it Sarah's name, but an address I'd never seen before. An address she'd never lived at. My sister had been missing for 3 years. The memory hit me like a physical blow. 3 years, 2 months, and 17 days since Sarah vanished during her humanitarian mission in Moldova. She'd been working with an international medical organization providing care to trafficking victims near the Ukrainian border. One morning, she simply didn't report to the clinic. Her apartment was untouched, her passport still in the drawer, but Sarah herself had disappeared without a trace. I'd spent every spare moment since then searching for her. My position as an Army intelligence analyst at Fort Carson gave me access to resources most people could only dream of. I'd called in favors from contacts across military intelligence, traced financial records, analyzed satellite imagery of the area where she'd disappeared. Every lead had turned cold. The local police insisted she'd probably run off with some man, but I knew my sister. Sarah was dedicated, methodical, and she'd never abandon her patients or her family without a word. Commander Harrison's voice crackled through the laptop speaker, pulling me back to the present. "Sergeant Rodriguez, I need you to listen very carefully. That package arrival isn't random. We received classified intelligence this morning about a human trafficking ring that's been targeting military families. They use personal information to create elaborate traps." My hands trembled as I stared at the innocent-looking box sitting on my kitchen counter. It was wrapped in brown paper about the size of a shoebox, with Sarah's distinctive handwriting spelling out my name and address. But that return address... I pulled up Google Maps on my phone, searching for the street listed on the label. It was a warehouse district in Denver, about 90 minutes north of the base. "Sir, what are you saying, that someone's using my sister's disappearance to target me?" Harrison's expression was grim. "I'm saying don't move. Don't touch anything. I'm sending units to your location immediately." But something else was bothering me. I walked slowly around the package, keeping the recommended 6 feet of distance, examining it from every angle. There in the corner of the shipping label was a timestamp from 2 days ago. My heart nearly stopped. "Commander," I whispered, "this package was sent 2 days ago from Denver." "Affirmative, we're aware." "But sir, you don't understand." I had to force the words past the lump in my throat. "We have security footage from all shipping facilities in the metro area fed into our database, part of the domestic terrorism prevention program." Harrison leaned closer to his camera. "What are you telling me, Rodriguez?" I pulled up my secure laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard as I accessed the military intelligence database. Within minutes, I'd found the shipping facility that matched the address. The security footage was crisp and clear, showing every person who'd entered the building 2 days ago. "Sir," I breathed, my voice barely audible, "I'm sending you a screenshot." The image showed a woman at the shipping counter, her face turned partially away from the camera, but still recognizable. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, the small scar on her left hand from when we'd built a tree house as kids, wearing a green jacket I'd given her for Christmas 4 years ago. It was Sarah. But what made my blood run cold wasn't just seeing my missing sister alive. It was the 2 men flanking her, their hands gripping her arms, and the unmistakable look of terror in her eyes as she handed the package to the clerk. Harrison's sharp intake of breath told me he understood the implications. Rodriguez, those men with her. I recognize one of them. That's Dmitry Volkov. He's wanted in 12 countries for human trafficking, arms dealing, and murder. If your sister's with him... "She's not with him by choice," I said firmly. "Look at her body language, the way they're holding her. She's a prisoner." "Which means this package is either a trap or a cry for help," Harrison concluded. "Maybe both. ETA on the response team is 8 minutes. Do not approach that package." But I couldn't tear my eyes away from the box. My sister alive after 3 years, forced to send me something on my birthday. What message was she trying to convey? What did those monsters want with me? The video footage had audio. I enhanced it, isolating the conversation at the counter. Most of it was muffled, but I caught Sarah's voice, strained and careful. Please make sure this arrives on October 15th. It's very important. October 15th. Today, my 28th birthday. A noise from outside made me freeze. Through my apartment window, I saw black SUVs pulling into the parking lot. But something was wrong. The response time was too fast. Harrison had said 8 minutes, but barely 3 had passed. "Commander," I said urgently, "there are vehicles here, but—" The video call cut out. My laptop screen went black. The lights in my apartment flickered once, then died. Even my cell phone, fully charged moments ago, was completely dead. In the sudden darkness, I heard boots on the stairs, multiple sets moving with military precision. But as my eyes adjusted to the dim light filtering through the windows, I noticed something that made my special operations training kick into high gear. The box on my counter was glowing. A faint blue light emanated from beneath the brown paper, pulsing steadily like a heartbeat. Whatever Sarah had sent me, it was electronic, it was active, and it had just been triggered by the power outage. The footsteps reached my door. I had seconds to decide, follow orders and stay away from the package, or trust my sister's desperate gambit and discover what she'd risked everything to send me. I made my choice. My hands closed around the box just as my apartment door exploded inward. The last thing I saw before everything went white was the pulsing blue light expanding outward and the shocked faces of men in tactical gear who definitely weren't military police. Then the world shifted, and I was falling through electric blue light, Sarah's terrified face from the security footage burning in my mind. Whatever my sister had sent me, it wasn't just a message. It was an escape route, or maybe a portal to something far worse. The blue light faded as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving me gasping on my kitchen floor with the package clutched against my chest. My vision swam back into focus to find myself surrounded by armed figures in tactical gear, their weapons trained on me. But these weren't the fake military police who'd broken down my door. These wore legitimate Army insignia, and I recognized Sergeant First Class Thompson from base security. "Sergeant Rodriguez, are you injured?" Thompson kept his weapon lowered but ready. "We need you to slowly set down the package and step away." "Wait!" I croaked, my throat raw. "The men who broke in first, where are they?" Thompson's expression darkened. 4 hostiles neutralized in the stairwell. They were carrying foreign weapons and signal jammers. Commander Harrison's orders were to secure you and the package. He gestured to a figure in bomb disposal gear, waiting in my destroyed doorway. "We need to examine that box, Sergeant." Reluctantly, I placed the package on the floor and backed away. The bomb technician specialist Martinez moved in with detection equipment while I was ushered to my living room couch. Through the window, I could see the parking lot swarming with military vehicles and personnel. This had escalated far beyond a suspicious package. "Sergeant Rodriguez." Thompson said those men were professionals, Eastern European based on their equipment. Commander Harrison believes they were after the package, not you. Martinez's voice crackled through the radio. "No explosive materials detected, but there's definitely electronic components inside. Some kind of advanced circuitry I've never seen before. And," he paused, "there's a hidden compartment, requesting permission to open." "Granted," Thompson responded, then turned to me. "Any idea what your sister might have sent?" Before I could answer, Martinez carefully peeled away the brown paper, revealing a plain cardboard box. Inside, cushioned in foam, was what looked like an external hard drive, but with modifications I'd never seen. Blue circuits traced across its surface in patterns that seemed almost organic. Beneath it, in a sealed plastic pouch, were 2 items that made my heart stop: Sarah's military dog tags from her time in the Air Force Reserve and a small USB drive. "Those are definitely Sarah's tags," I whispered, recognizing the scratches and wear patterns. "She never took them off, not even after she left the service." Martinez lifted the items with gloved hands. There's something else. The hard drive has a biometric scanner. Looks like it's coded to specific fingerprints. My mind raced. Sarah sending her dog tags was a clear message this was really from her, not some elaborate fake. But the biometric lock meant she'd planned this carefully. "Let me try," I said. "If she sent it to me—" Thompson nodded approval. I pressed my thumb to the scanner, but nothing happened. Then, remembering how Sarah always thought 3 steps ahead, I tried my index finger. Still nothing. It was Martinez who spotted the clue. "Sergeant, look at the packaging foam. There's writing pressed into it." I peered closer and saw faint indentations. "Remember our secret place." My breath caught. When we were kids, Sarah and I had created an elaborate code for passing notes. We'd use our pinky fingers to seal the messages, a ritual that made them official secrets. I pressed my left pinky finger to the scanner. The device hummed to life, the blue circuits pulsing brighter. A small screen flickered on, displaying a single line of text, "Insert USB for decryption protocol." "I need a secure laptop," I said. "This USB might contain classified information." 20 minutes later, we were in a secure facility on base. The fake military police had been identified as mercenaries linked to Eastern European crime syndicates. Commander Harrison arrived as I was connecting the USB to an air-gapped computer system. "Rodriguez," he said without preamble, "what you're about to see doesn't leave this room. We've suspected for months that someone's been selling classified military intelligence. Your sister may have found proof." The USB required a password. I tried several combinations before remembering another childhood game. Sarah and I had memorized the periodic table together, creating silly sentences for each element. I typed in, "Helium balloons, fly 2 girls," our phrase for helium, plus our ages when we'd invented it. The screen filled with files, hundreds of documents, photos, and encrypted communications. But what caught my attention was a video file labeled, "For Jocelyn, watch first." Sarah's face appeared on screen, haggard and thin, but unmistakably alive. The timestamp showed it was recorded just a week ago. She was in what looked like a concrete room, speaking quickly and quietly. "Jocelyn, if you're watching this, the package reached you. I'm sorry for everything, for disappearing, for the danger I'm putting you in now. But I discovered something during my work in Moldova that I couldn't ignore. The trafficking victims we were treating, some of them were military dependents, American military dependents." She glanced off camera nervously before continuing. "I started investigating and found a network selling information about military families to trafficking rings. Deploy schedules, financial records, personal details that made families vulnerable. I gathered evidence, but before I could report it, they took me." My hands clenched into fists. Sarah had been kidnapped for trying to protect military families. "I've been forced to work for them for 3 years." Sarah continued, "using my medical skills to keep their victims alive for transport. It makes me sick, but it also gave me access to their systems. Everything I've collected is on this drive, names, dates, transactions. But Jocelyn, the most important thing you need to know is that the network extends into our own military. High-ranking officers are involved." She paused, tears visible in her eyes. "I'm sending this on your birthday because I knew they'd be watching for any communication between us. They monitor everything, but they don't know about our childhood codes. The modified hard drive contains a tracking program I stole from their tech specialist. It can trace their entire network, but only someone with military intelligence clearance can fully decrypt it." A noise off camera made her flinch. "I have to go. Trust Commander Harrison. I've been sending him anonymous tips for months, but be careful who else you trust. The person running this operation from inside the military is someone you know, someone positioned to monitor intelligence operations and identify vulnerable families. Find them, stop them, and maybe I can finally come home." The video ended. I sat in stunned silence, processing the implications. Harrison was already pulling up files from the USB, his expression growing darker with each document. "This is worse than we thought," he muttered. Rodriguez, your sister's identified transactions linking to over 40 missing military dependents, and these account numbers—" He turned to face me fully. "They trace back to someone on this base, someone with top-secret clearance." I thought about Sarah's words, someone I knew, someone positioned to monitor intelligence operations. My mind ran through the list of personnel with that level of access. The pool was small, maybe a dozen officers. "Sir," I said slowly, "we need to be very careful how we proceed. If they have someone inside military intelligence, they'll know we have this evidence the moment we start investigating." Harrison nodded grimly. "Agreed. We need a small, trusted team. People we know can't be compromised." He pulled up his secure phone. "I'm calling in Major Chen from Cyber Warfare. If anyone can decrypt your sister's tracking program safely, it's him." But as Harrison made the call, I noticed something troubling on the computer screen. The USB files included communication logs, and one name appeared repeatedly in encrypted messages: Lieutenant Colonel Patricia Wells. My stomach dropped. Wells wasn't just someone I knew. She was my direct supervisor, my mentor, the officer who'd guided my career since I joined military intelligence 5 years ago, the woman who'd comforted me when Sarah disappeared, who'd personally expedited resources for the search. "Commander," I said quietly, "I think I know who Sarah was warning me about." As if sensing the net closing in my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Jocelyn, we need to talk about your sister. Meet me in my office in 10 minutes. Come alone. P. Wells." I showed Harrison the message. His jaw tightened. "She knows we have the package. This is either her trying to control the situation or she's going to try to eliminate the threat I finished. Sir, I can't believe Colonel Wells would. She's been like a mother to me since I joined the service." "Which would make her the perfect person to monitor you," Harrison pointed out. "Rodriguez, we need to play this carefully. If Wells is involved, she has 3 years of intelligence on your sister's location. She might be our only link to finding her." I stood, my mind made up. "Then I'll meet with her. But we do this smart. Wire me up, have backup ready. If Wells is dirty, maybe I can get her to reveal where they're holding Sarah." Harrison studied me for a long moment. "You sure you can handle facing her if she's really been betraying us all this time?" "Then she's going to learn what happens when you threaten my family," I said, steel in my voice. As we prepared for the confrontation, I couldn't shake the feeling that Sarah's warning had layers I hadn't yet uncovered. The tracking program, the biometric locks, the elaborate delivery method my sister had planned this, down to the smallest detail. Which meant she'd anticipated that the enemy was closer than any of us had imagined. And if Lieutenant Colonel Wells, my mentor and confidant, was really trafficking in human misery, then everything I thought I knew about my career, my purpose, and the people I trusted was about to shatter. But first, I had to walk into the office of a woman who might be planning to kill me and pretend I didn't know she was a monster. Major Marcus Chen arrived at the secure facility within minutes, his cyber warfare team wheeling in equipment that looked more suited to NASA than the Army. While they worked on fully decrypting Sarah's tracking program, I prepared for my meeting with Lieutenant Colonel Wells. Harrison's team fitted me with the latest surveillance equipment, a microscopic earpiece, and a fiber optic camera woven into my uniform button. "Remember," Harrison instructed, "we need her to incriminate herself. Don't push too hard. Let her think she's in control." Marcus called out from his workstation. "Commander Sergeant Rodriguez, you need to see this." On his screen, Sarah's tracking program had revealed a web of connections spanning continents. This isn't just human trafficking. They're selling military intelligence weapon shipment schedules, even the identities of undercover assets. And look at this. He highlighted a series of transactions. Each one corresponded to a military family member who'd gone missing over the past 5 years. The payments went to offshore accounts, but Sarah had traced them through shell companies, back to a single source. "These authorization codes," Marcus said grimly, "they're from inside Fort Carson's intelligence division, specifically from someone with alpha-level clearance. Only 3 people on base had that level: Commander Harrison, General Morrison, who ran the entire intelligence operation, and Lieutenant Colonel Wells." There's more. Marcus continued pulling up another file. Sergeant Rodriguez, your sister, hid a personal message in the code itself. It's in your childhood cipher. I leaned in, recognizing the pattern immediately. Sarah had woven words into the programming language itself, visible only to someone who knew to look for it. My hands shook as I decoded it. Jojo Wells killed Mom and Dad. Car accident was staged. I found proof in Moldova. She's been watching us since we enlisted. Trust no one except Harrison. He tried to warn me before I disappeared. I'm at Compound 7, Sonora Desert, Mexico. Dimitri thinks I'm broken, but I've been sabotaging shipments. Rescue coming soon cartels angry about lost merchandise. If you found this, I'm either free or dead. Either way, stop her. Love, Sarah Bear. The room spun. Our parents' accident 5 years ago, a rainy night. A truck running a red light, instant death. Wells had been the one to deliver the news, holding me as I sobbed, promising to look after Sarah and me. Rodriguez. Harrison's voice was gentle but firm. I know this is a shock, but we need you focused. Can you face Wells knowing this? Rage crystallized into cold purpose. She's been playing us for years, grooming us, using our grief. I stood checking my concealed equipment. I'm ready. 10 minutes later, I knocked on Wells' office door. She answered immediately as if she'd been waiting by it. Her expression was its usual mixture of stern professionalism and maternal concern, but now I could see the calculation behind it. Jocelyn, come in, close the door behind you. Her office was exactly as it had always been, photos of her with various units over the years, commendations on the walls, a small cactus on her desk she claimed was impossible to kill. I'd spent hundreds of hours in this room seeking guidance, sharing fears about Sarah building what I'd thought was trust. Ma'am, I said, taking my usual seat across from her desk. Drop the formalities, Jocelyn. We need to talk about what happened at your apartment today. She moved to the window, gazing out at the base. A package from your sister. After 3 years of silence. Yes, ma'am. The commander thinks... I know what Harrison thinks. She turned, and for the first time, I saw something cold in her eyes. He's always been too idealistic, too trusting. Did you open the package? I let uncertainty creep into my voice. The bomb squad has it. They said it contained some kind of electronic device. Colonel, do you think Sarah's alive? Wells returned to her desk, sitting down slowly. What did the device contain, Jocelyn? I don't know. They wouldn't let me see... Don't lie to me. Her voice remained calm, but her hand moved casually to her desk drawer. I know Harrison. He would have opened it immediately, especially with you there. So I'll ask again, what did Sarah send you? I decided to give her partial truth. Her dog tags, and a USB drive, but it was encrypted. Cyber warfare is working on it now. I see. Wells leaned back, studying me. Jocelyn, I'm going to tell you something in confidence. We've known for months that Sarah is alive. She's being held by a trafficking ring run by Dmitry Volkov. We haven't moved on the intelligence because we're trying to map their entire network. My heart raced, but I kept my expression neutral. You knew all this time. It was classified at the highest levels, but now that Sarah's made contact, things have become complicated. Wells stood again, pacing. That USB drive likely contains intelligence that could compromise ongoing operations that could save dozens of lives, including Sarah's. What are you saying? I'm saying that sometimes in intelligence work we have to make hard choices. Sarah stumbled onto something in Moldova, yes, but instead of reporting it through proper channels, she tried to investigate on her own. That's how Volkov caught her. The lies flowed so smoothly, I wondered how many times she'd rehearsed this story. Colonel, I said carefully, what exactly did Sarah find? Wells stopped pacing. Evidence of a mole in military intelligence, someone selling information to traffickers. She met my eyes directly. We've been running a counterintelligence operation to identify them. Sarah's interference nearly destroyed years of work. So you're saying we should leave her with the traffickers? I'm saying we need to be smart. Wells returned to her desk, and this time she did open the drawer, pulling out a folder. These are surveillance photos from the compound where Sarah's being held. We know exactly where she is, Jocelyn. But if we move too soon, the mole will disappear, and dozens of other victims will never be found. She slid the photos across to me. They showed a desert compound heavily fortified, and there, in one grainy image, was Sarah, alive, working in what looked like a medical facility. However, Wells continued, if that USB contains what I think it does, we might have to accelerate our timeline. I need you to get me access to whatever Marcus Chen decrypts, quietly, without Harrison knowing. There it was, the ask, the test of my loyalty. You're asking me to go behind Commander Harrison's back. I'm asking you to trust me like you always have. Wells leaned forward, her expression softening into the maternal mask I'd fallen for so many times. Jocelyn, I've protected you for 5 years, guided your career, been there through your parents' death and Sarah's disappearance. Have I ever led you astray? The earpiece crackled softly. Harrison's voice. String her along, we need more. No, ma'am, I said. You've always been there for me. It's just, this is all happening so fast. I understand, but time is critical. Volkov has people everywhere, even on this base. The mole could be anyone, that's why we've kept this operation so compartmentalized. She pulled out another document. This is a classified directive signed by General Morrison himself. It authorizes me to take any action necessary to protect the counterintelligence operation. I studied the document, noting the authentic-looking signature. Either Morrison was also compromised, or Wells had gotten very good at forgery. What do you need me to do? I asked. First, find out what's on that USB. Report only to me. Second, if Sarah makes any further contact, you inform me immediately. And third, she paused, seeming to weigh her words. Be very careful around Harrison. He's a good man, but his emotional investment in this case might be clouding his judgment. Emotional investment. Wells nodded slowly. He and Sarah were in contact before she disappeared. I believe he may have feelings for her that go beyond professional concern. It could compromise his objectivity. Another lie wrapped in just enough truth to be plausible. Harrison had mentioned Sarah sent him tips, but Wells was trying to paint it as something more to divide my trust. I understand, Colonel. I'll get you the information from the USB as soon as it's decrypted. Good. And Jocelyn. She stood coming around the desk to place a hand on my shoulder. We're going to get Sarah back, I promise you that. But we have to do this the right way or more people will die. I looked up at her. This woman who'd murdered my parents, who'd sold out fellow soldiers for money, who'd pretended to care while orchestrating our destruction. Thank you, ma'am, for everything. Dismissed, Sergeant. I left her office, maintaining my composure until I was clear of the building. Only then did I allow myself to process the full scope of her manipulation. In my ear, Harrison's voice was tight with controlled anger. We got it all. Wells just hung herself. Return to the secure facility immediately. But as I walked, my phone buzzed with a text from Wells. Jocelyn, one more thing. That tracking program Sarah embedded in the device, I know about it. It goes active in 12 hours unless properly disabled. When it does, Volkov will know exactly where the USB is. He'll come for you just like he came for Sarah. The only way to stop it is with the kill code, which I have. Your sister's life depends on your next decision. Don't test me. I screenshot the message and kept walking. Wells had just revealed she knew far more about the package than she'd admitted, but she'd also shown her hand she was getting desperate. In 12 hours, either we'd have Wells in custody or Sarah's tracking program would activate and bring Volkov's entire network down on our heads. Either way, my sister's 3-year nightmare was about to reach its climax. The pieces were in place. Now we had to decide who would make the next move in this deadly game where my sister's life hung in the balance. Back at the secure facility, the atmosphere was electric with tension. Marcus had fully decrypted Sarah's files, and what they revealed was staggering. Wells hadn't just been selling information, she'd been strategically grooming military personnel for years, identifying those with vulnerable family members and using them as leverage or targets. Look at this. Marcus pulled up a sprawling diagram on the main screen. Wells created detailed psychological profiles on over 200 service members. She identified those with specific traits, strong family bonds, financial pressures, or isolated relatives. Then she'd orchestrate their assignments to places where Volkov's network operated. My profile was there, marked with notations going back 6 years before I'd even enlisted. Wells had been watching Sarah and me since we were teenagers, waiting for us to join the military. Harrison studied another file grimly. She positioned herself perfectly. As head of personnel assessments for intelligence operations, she could manipulate assignments, control information flow, and identify anyone who might threaten her operation. "Commander," one of the cyber specialists called out, "We found something else. Wells has been using military satellites to track operations. But get this, she's been feeding false intel to cartels about their competition. She's been playing trafficking groups against each other." That explains something in Sarah's message about cartels being angry about lost merchandise. My sister hadn't just been gathering evidence, she'd been actively sabotaging shipments, and Wells had been blaming it on rival cartels. "There's a problem," Marcus announced. Wells was telling the truth about one thing. This tracking program has a dead man's switch. He checked his screen. 11 hours and 37 minutes, it broadcasts the location of everyone who's accessed these files, not to law enforcement, to every criminal organization in Wells' network. "Can you disable it?" Harrison asked. "Not without the kill code. It's military-grade encryption, probably something Wells stole from Cyber Command. If I try to force it, the program activates immediately." I paced the room thinking, she's trying to force our hand. Either we give her the evidence or she lets Volkov know exactly where to find us. "There's another option," Harrison said quietly. "We could arrest Wells, now try to force the kill code from her." "She'll have contingencies," I countered. "Wells has been planning this for years. She probably has the code stored somewhere only she can access, or maybe it requires biometric confirmation. Plus, if we move on her, what happens to Sarah?" Marcus pulled up satellite imagery of the Mexico compound. According to these heat signatures, there are approximately 40 people there. If Wells tips them off, they'll kill everyone and disappear, I finished. We were trapped between saving Sarah and stopping a massive criminal network. But then I remembered something from my childhood with Sarah, how we'd always found third options when playing strategy games. "What if we don't disable the tracking program?" I said suddenly. "What if we let it activate?" Everyone turned to stare at me. "Hear me out," I continued. "Wells thinks the program will broadcast our location to criminals. But Marcus, could you modify it? Make it broadcast their locations to us instead." Marcus's eyes lit up. "Reverse the polarity of the neutron flow," he muttered, already typing. "It's possible. The program has to know where to send the signal, which means it has their network addresses embedded. If I can flip the transmission protocol..." "Wells won't know until it's too late," Harrison realized. "She thinks she's threatening us, but we'd turn her weapon against her." "There's still the problem of the compound," I pointed out. "Sarah and the other victims. We need a way to get them out before the network realizes what's happening." Harrison made a decision. "We'll coordinate with DEA and Mexican authorities. A simultaneous strike on all locations once the program activates." He turned to me. "But first, we need to keep Wells believing she's in control. You'll have to meet with her again." My phone buzzed. Another text from Wells. "My office, 20 minutes. Bring proof you have the USB contents, or I activate the program early. Your sister's life is in your hands." "She's escalating," I said. "Getting desperate." "Good," Harrison replied. "Desperate people make mistakes. Marcus, can you create a convincing fake, something that looks like partial USB contents but doesn't give her anything useful?" "Give me 15 minutes, Marcus said, fingers flying across his keyboard. While he worked, I studied Sarah's files more closely. My sister had documented everything: dates, times, transactions, even personal details about the trafficking victims she'd treated. One entry made me pause. May 15th. Treated a 14-year-old girl daughter of Sergeant Phillips from Fort Bragg. Wells had flagged the family after the father refused a transfer to South Korea. The girl was taken 3 days after he deployed to Afghanistan. She won't stop crying for her mother. My hands clenched. How many families had Wells destroyed? How many children had she condemned to slavery? Got it, Marcus announced. Fake USB contents complete with enough real data to be convincing, but nothing she can use. I loaded the files onto a secure tablet. What's our backup plan if she doesn't buy it? Strike teams are already in position around her office, Harrison assured me. The moment she makes a hostile move, we take her down. But Rodriguez tried to get her talking. The more she reveals, the stronger our case. I headed back to Wells' office, the tablet feeling heavy in my hands. This time I noticed things I'd missed before: the subtle reinforcement on her office door, the strategic positioning of her desk to see all angles of approach, the small camera hidden in her bookshelf. Wells had turned her office into a fortress. She was waiting again, but this time she wasn't alone. A man in civilian clothes stood by her window, tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of stillness that screamed special operations. Jocelyn, this is Mr. Smith from the State Department. He's been overseeing our counterintelligence operation. Smith nodded but said nothing. His eyes tracked my every movement. I brought what you asked for, I said, holding up the tablet. Show me. I activated the screen displaying Marcus's forgery. Wells studied it intently while Smith watched me. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, Wells spoke. This is only partial data. Where's the rest? Cyber is still working on the encryption. This is all they've decoded so far. She exchanged a glance with Smith. That's unfortunate. You see, Mr. Volkov is not a patient man. When he learns Sarah stole his tracking program, he'll want to make an example of her. Then give me the kill code, I said. Disable the program and we can focus on rescuing Sarah without worrying about Volkov's people coming here. Wells laughed, a cold sound I'd never heard from her before. Oh, Jocelyn, still thinking like a soldier instead of an intelligence officer. The tracking program isn't just about location data, it's about control. As long as it exists, Volkov needs me to manage it. The moment it's gone, so is my leverage. So you're using my sister as a bargaining chip. I'm using everything as a bargaining chip. She stood moving closer. You still don't understand the full picture. This isn't just about trafficking or selling secrets. It's about power, information, who controls what and why. Smith finally spoke, his voice carrying a slight accent I couldn't place. Your sister discovered something she shouldn't have. Not just our operation, but our partners. People in governments worldwide who benefit from our services. That USB contains enough information to destabilize relations between nations. I kept my expression neutral, but inside I was reeling. This was bigger than we'd thought. So what do you want? Complete the decryption, Wells said. Give us all the files. In return, I'll provide the kill code and the exact location of your sister. You can mount your rescue, save the day, be the hero. Everyone wins. Except the other victims. Casualties of war, Smith said dismissively. Your government kills civilians with drone strikes daily. At least our victims serve a purpose. They keep dangerous information from reaching dangerous hands. I wanted to attack them both, but I forced myself to remain calm. I need proof Sarah's still alive, current proof. Wells considered this, then pulled out a satellite phone. She dialed, speaking in rapid Russian when someone answered. After a moment, she held out the phone. 30 seconds. I grabbed it. Sarah. Jocelyn. My sister's voice was weak but unmistakably real. Oh God, is it really you? Sarah, I'm coming for you. Just hold on. No time, she interrupted. The compound, they're moving everyone tomorrow. Something about a cartel war. Jocelyn, the program I sent. The line went dead. Wells took the phone back, smiling coldly. Satisfied now, the files. I need more time, I said. The encryption is complex. Give me until morning. You have 6 hours, Wells countered. After that, I activate the program manually and let Volkov handle things his way. Smith opened the door, a clear dismissal. As I left, Wells called after me. Oh, and Jocelyn, don't bother trying to trace that call. The compound will be empty long before any rescue team arrives. Your sister's life really does depend on your cooperation. I maintained my composure until I was clear of the building, then sprinted back to the secure facility. They're moving the victims tomorrow, I reported breathlessly. Sarah confirmed it, something about a cartel war. Wells doing, Harrison realized. She's been pitting trafficking groups against each other. She must be consolidating before things explode. 6 hours, I said. That's our window. Either we give her what she wants or she activates the program early. Marcus looked up from his screens. Actually, that might work in our favor. I've made progress on reversing the program. If she triggers it manually, she'll have to input commands that will reveal her network's infrastructure. We could trace everything back to its source, including where they're moving the victims, Harrison added. Rodriguez, are you willing to play this out? It's dangerous once Wells realizes we've turned her program against her. She'll know you betrayed her. I thought of Sarah's voice, weak but fighting, of the 14-year-old girl crying for her mother, of my parents murdered because Wells needed us isolated and vulnerable. I'm in, I said firmly. Let's end this. The next 6 hours would determine everything, whether Sarah lived or died, whether Wells' network crumbled or escaped, whether justice would finally be served for the countless families she'd destroyed. But now we had something Wells didn't expect: Sarah's brilliant contingency plan, Marcus's cyber expertise, and my determination to save my sister no matter the cost. The trap was set. Now we just had to survive until it sprang. The next 5 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Marcus and his team worked feverishly to complete their reversal of Sarah's tracking program, while Harrison coordinated with DEA, FBI, and Mexican authorities for what would be the largest simultaneous raid in human trafficking history. I spent the time memorizing every detail of Sarah's files, looking for any advantage we might have missed. At hour 5, with 60 minutes left on Wells' deadline, she called me directly. "Change of plans," she said without preamble. "Mr. Smith has concerns about your commitment. He wants to meet you personally. The old ammunition depot, building 47. Come alone." The abandoned ammo depot sat on the outskirts of Fort Carson, a relic from World War II that had been condemned but never demolished. It was isolated, surrounded by restricted terrain, a perfect location for making someone disappear. "That's not what we agreed," I said. "Agreements change. You now have 55 minutes. Don't be late." She hung up. Harrison immediately pulled up satellite imagery of the depot. "This is a trap. She's planning to eliminate you." "Or she's testing me," I countered. "Wells has played the long game for years. She won't throw it away just to kill me. She needs what's on that USB. "Unless she's already decided to cut her losses and run," Marcus interjected. "I've been tracking her financial movements. In the past 6 hours, she's liquidated several accounts. Over $30 million transferred to banks in non-extradition countries." Harrison made the call. "We're accelerating the timeline. Marcus, how long until you can activate the reverse program?" 20 minutes minimum. The code needs to compile properly or it'll fragment the data stream. "Do it. Rodriguez will have backup teams surrounding the depot, but they'll have to stay hidden. If Wells spots them, she'll activate the program and disappear." I finished. "I know. Give me a wire and a weapon." As they equipped me, a new message arrived on my phone. A video file from Wells. I opened it to find footage of the Mexico compound. Armed men were loading people into trucks, dozens of victims, their faces blank with trauma. Then the camera focused on a familiar figure helping an injured woman into a vehicle. Sarah still fighting to protect others, even in captivity. "Your sister, the hero." Wells' voice narrated over the footage, "Still trying to save everyone. It's what made her so easy to manipulate. Just like you, Jocelyn, always believing you can make a difference." The video ended with coordinates and a timestamp, the new location, where they were moving the victims, but only accessible for the next 4 hours. "She's showing us where Sarah will be," I said. "Why?" "Because she knows we can't act on it," Harrison realized. "Not without the kill code to disable the tracking program. If we move on that location, Volkov's entire network will converge on us." It was the perfect trap: save Sarah and risk losing everything or sacrifice her to take down the network. Wells was forcing us to make the same impossible choice she'd claimed to face. "There's a third option," Marcus said suddenly. "I can fragment the program activation, make it look like it's broadcasting from multiple locations simultaneously. Volkov's people won't know which signal is real." "How many false signals?" Harrison asked. "Dozens, maybe hundreds, but it'll only confuse them for a few hours before they figure out the deception." "Hours are all we need," I said. "Do it." I drove to the depot as the sun set, painting the desert in shades of red and gold. Building 47 loomed against the darkening sky, its concrete walls scarred by decades of weather and neglect. I parked 50 yards away and approached on foot, every nerve screaming danger. The main door stood open, an invitation or a trap. I drew my sidearm and entered, letting my eyes adjust to the darkness. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows down empty corridors lined with rusted doors. "Down here, Jocelyn." Wells' voice echoed from somewhere deeper in the building. "Third door on the right, and please put the weapon away. We're all professionals here." I kept my gun out, but lowered as I navigated the hallways. The third door opened into a large storage area, probably once used for artillery shells. Industrial lighting had been set up, revealing Wells and Smith waiting beside a table covered in communications equipment. But what made me freeze was the third person in the room, a young woman bound to a chair, a hood over her head. "I thought a demonstration might be necessary," Wells said casually, "to help you understand the stakes." She pulled off the hood, revealing a girl who couldn't be older than 16. Blonde hair, blue eyes wide with terror tape across her mouth. "Private Jessica Morrison," Wells announced. "Daughter of General Morrison, your base commander. Taken this morning when she left school early with a supposed illness. Her father doesn't even know she's missing yet." My gun hand trembled. "Let her go. She's got nothing to do with this." "But she does," Smith interjected. "General Morrison has been investigating discrepancies in Wells' reports, getting too close to the truth. This is insurance." "You're insane," I breathed. "Kidnapping a general's daughter on a military base. Every resource in the country will come down on you." "Only if they find out," Wells said. "Which brings us to our business. The complete USB files now, or young Jessica here joins the shipment to Mexico. I wonder how long the general's daughter would last in Volkov's compounds." I pulled out the tablet, my mind racing. Marcus needed 10 more minutes to complete the program reversal. I had to stall. "First, the kill code," I demanded. "Prove you can actually disable the tracking program." Wells smiled. "Fair enough." She moved to the communications equipment, typing on a laptop. "Watch the screen. You'll see the program's status indicator." Code flashed across the display, complex algorithms I couldn't follow, but the status bar at the bottom was clear. "Tracking active, 4732 until broadcast." Wells entered a long string of characters. The status changed. "Tracking suspended, awaiting confirmation." "There," she said. "The first half of the kill code. You'll get the second half when I have the complete files." "How do I know that's real?" "You don't, but it's the best you're going to get." She stepped back from the laptop. "Your move, Jocelyn." I approached the table, noting Smith's position, the exits, Jessica Morrison's terrified eyes tracking my movement. The earpiece crackled softly, Harrison's team confirming they were in position. "The files are on here," I said, holding up the tablet, "but they're locked to my biometrics. I need to transfer them directly." It was a risk. Getting close to their equipment would expose me, but it would also give Marcus remote access to their systems through my wire's hidden transmitter. "Do it," Wells ordered. I connected the tablet to their laptop, initiating the transfer. As the files began copying, I caught movement on one of the security monitor's vehicles approaching the depot from multiple directions. Smith noticed too. "We have company." Wells checked the screens, then turned to me with cold fury. "You brought them here!" "No," I said, backing away. "I came alone, just like you said." But Wells was already moving, grabbing Jessica Morrison and pressing a gun to her head. "Everyone stays exactly where they are, or the general's daughter dies." Smith drew his weapon, covering me. On the monitors, I could see tactical teams surrounding the building, but they wouldn't breach, not with a hostage in play. Wells' phone buzzed. She checked it one-handed, her expression darkening. Clever. Very clever. She showed me the screen, dozens of tracking signals activating across the globe. "You reversed my program." Sarah's program, I corrected. She always was smarter than both of us. 43 minutes. Wells said, checking the countdown. "That's how long until the real locations are identified. Enough time for me to disappear, but not enough for you to save everyone." She backed toward a rear exit, dragging Jessica with her. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm leaving with the girl as insurance. You're going to call off your teams. In exchange, I'll give you the compound location where Sarah and the others are being held." "You already gave us the location," I pointed out. "I gave you where they were going. But plans change. Volkov got spooked by all the activity. They've redirected to a secondary site." She smiled coldly. "One that's not in any of Sarah's files. So decide, Jocelyn. Stop me and lose your sister, or let me go and maybe save her." The countdown on the laptop screen ticked lower, 46:58 until broadcast. Somewhere in Mexico, Sarah was being driven to an unknown location. General Morrison's daughter whimpered behind the tape across her mouth, and I stood between them, forced to choose. "You killed my parents," I said quietly. "You've destroyed hundreds of families. Did you really think you could just walk away?" "I think you're still the same sentimental fool who cried in my office when your sister disappeared," Wells replied. "You'll make the emotional choice. You always do." She was right, but she'd forgotten something crucial I'd learned from the best, from her. "Marcus," I said clearly, knowing the wire would pick it up. "Activate Sarah's secondary protocol, all of it." Wells' eyes widened. "There is no secondary protocol." "Are you sure?" I asked. "You had 3 years to study my sister. Did you really think her plan ended with just a tracking program?" The laptop screen flickered. New windows opened, files uploading themselves to servers worldwide. Financial records, communication logs, video evidence. Everything Sarah had gathered, broadcasting to every major news outlet and law enforcement agency simultaneously. Wells' phone exploded with alerts. Smith's too. Their entire network was being exposed in real time. "You clever little—" Wells started, but the rage transformed her face into something inhuman. That's when Jessica Morrison made her move. The general's daughter, who Wells had dismissed as a helpless victim, drove her elbow back into Wells' ribs and twisted away from the gun. In that split second of distraction, I moved. Years of training condensed into pure instinct as I crossed the distance between us. Wells swung her weapon toward me, but I was already inside her guard, deflecting her arm as the gun fired. The bullet sparked off concrete as we grappled. Smith raised his weapon, but Harrison's voice crackled through hidden speakers. "Federal agents, drop your weapon now!" The room erupted. Tactical teams breached from multiple entry points. Smith spun toward them, firing. Wells used the chaos to break free from me, scrambling for cover behind equipment crates. "It's over, Wells," I shouted over the gunfire. "Your network is finished." "Not while I'm breathing," she snarled back. I saw her reaching for something, a dead man's switch connected to the communications equipment. If she triggered it, the tracking program would activate immediately, sending Volkov's kill teams after everyone who'd accessed Sarah's files. I didn't think. I just moved, launching myself across the open space as Wells' finger found the trigger. We collided just as she pressed it, both of us crashing into the equipment table. Laptops and communication devices scattered across the floor. The screen flickered. "Manual activation initiated. Broadcasting in 10, 9. Marcus, I yelled into my wire. She triggered it. Stop the broadcast. On it, his voice crackled back. But I need the terminal she used. Wells and I fought desperately on the floor, each trying to reach the laptop. She was stronger than I'd expected, driven by desperation and fury. We rolled through broken equipment, neither able to gain a clear advantage. 5, 4... Jessica Morrison, freed from her bonds by an agent, suddenly appeared above us. The 16-year-old grabbed the laptop and shouted, "What do I do?" "Type this exactly." Marcus's voice filled the room through the speakers. Control-Alt-779 execute. 3, 2. Jessica's fingers flew across the keyboard. The countdown froze at 1, then disappeared. A new message appeared. Broadcast terminated, program deleted. Wells screamed in rage, throwing me off and lunging for Jessica. But Harrison was there, his weapon trained steadily on Wells' center mass. "Patricia Wells, you're under arrest for treason, human trafficking murder." The list went on, but I wasn't listening. I was staring at the laptop screen where new information was appearing, the real location of the compound where Sarah was being held. Marcus had managed to extract it from Wells's system before the program was deleted. "Commander," I interrupted, "we've got the location, but we need to move now." Harrison nodded without taking his eyes off Wells. "Go. Take Beta Team. We'll handle this." As agents secured Wells and Smith, I helped Jessica Morrison to her feet. "You did great," I told her. "Your dad's going to be proud." She managed a shaky smile. "Just returning the favor. My dad says you're the best intelligence analyst he's got. Prove him right. Go save your sister." I ran for the exit Beta Team, falling in behind me. Wells' voice followed me out. "You think you've won? Jocelyn Volkov will kill them all before you get there. Your sister will die knowing you failed her." But Wells was wrong about one thing. I wasn't the same sentimental fool who'd cried in her office 3 years ago. She'd taught me well how to be ruthless, how to think 3 steps ahead, how to turn weakness into strength. Now I was going to use every lesson she'd taught me to destroy everything she'd built and bring my sister home. The helicopter was already warming up as we reached it. According to the coordinates, we had less than 2 hours to reach the compound before Volkov's people scattered. 2 hours to end this nightmare. "Hold on, Sarah," I whispered as we lifted off into the night sky. "I'm coming." The helicopter raced south through the darkness, Beta Team checking weapons and equipment as we flew. The compound's coordinates placed it near the Arizona-Mexico border, a remote area perfect for hiding illegal operations. I studied the real-time satellite feed on my tactical tablet, memorizing every detail of the layout. 90 minutes to target, the pilot announced. "But we've got a problem. Weather system moving in from the west. Sandstorm conditions expected within the hour." A sandstorm would provide cover, but also make the operation exponentially more dangerous. I keyed my radio to Harrison back at Fort Carson. "Commander, we need to coordinate with the other strike teams. If we hit the primary compound while the storm provides cover—" "Negative," Harrison interrupted. "Mexican authorities just reported Volkov's convoy changing direction. They're heading for a private airfield 60 miles east of your position. If they make it there, they'll scatter to a dozen different countries." I finished. "How long until they reach the airfield?" 70 minutes, maybe less. Rodriguez, we can redirect to intercept the convoy, but that means abandoning the compound raid." I closed my eyes, thinking furiously. Sarah was in that convoy somewhere along with dozens of other victims, but the compound might have intelligence we needed to completely dismantle the network. "Sir, what if we don't choose?" I said. "What if we split the difference?" "Explain." "The sandstorm. It'll hit the convoy's route before they reach the airfield. Vehicles will have to slow down, maybe even stop. That's our window. Beta Team hits the convoy during the storm while Alpha Team takes the compound." "That's insane," Lieutenant Torres, Beta Team's leader, said from across the helicopter. "Engaging in a sandstorm will be blind out there." "So will they," I countered. And we have one advantage: Sarah's medical knowledge. If I know my sister, she'll be ready to act the moment an opportunity presents itself. Harrison was quiet for a moment. "It's your call, Rodriguez. This is your operation." I looked around at Beta Team 8 soldiers who'd volunteered for this mission, knowing the risks. "Anyone who wants out can stay with the helicopter. No judgment." Torres laughed grimly. "With respect, Sergeant, shut up. We're seeing this through." The pilot adjusted course, angling to intercept the convoy's projected route. On the satellite feed, I could see the vehicle's 3 large trucks and 4 escort SUVs moving in formation along a desert highway. The sandstorm appeared as a brown wall advancing from the west. "Marcus," I radioed, "can you tap into any communications from that convoy?" "Already on it," he replied, "picking up radio chatter. They're discussing the storm, debating whether to push through or find shelter." "What about Sarah? Any indication which vehicle she's in?" "Based on the chatter, middle truck. They keep referencing the doctor and medical supplies. That's gotta be her." I felt a surge of hope. The middle truck would be the most protected, but also the most valuable. If we could isolate it. 40 minutes to intercept," the pilot announced. "Storm's moving faster than predicted. It'll hit them in 30. Through the helicopter's windows, I could see the storm front, a massive wall of dust and sand towering thousands of feet high, lit by occasional flashes of lightning. It looked apocalyptic. "Comms will be sketchy in that mess," Torres warned. "We'll have to stay close, use hand signals when possible." I pulled up Sarah's files again, looking for anything that might help. There a note about the convoy procedures. Volkov's people use specific protocols during transport, including regular check-ins with outriders. If those check-ins stopped— "I have an idea," I announced. "We take out the rear escort vehicle first, quietly. In the storm's chaos, they might not notice immediately. Then we work our way forward using their own vehicles as cover." "And when we reach the middle truck?" Torres asked. "We pray Sarah's ready." I touched the photo of my sister I kept in my vest pocket. "Because we'll only get one shot at this." The storm hit the convoy 28 minutes later. Through the helicopter's storm-enhanced optics, we watched the vehicles slow to a crawl as visibility dropped to near zero. The pilot fought to keep us stable as winds buffeted the aircraft. "This is our stop," Torres shouted over the noise. "Everybody ready!" We fast roped down into the maelstrom, boots hitting sandy ground that was already being scoured by horizontal winds. Visibility was maybe 10 feet, perfect for an ambush, terrible for everything else. Using GPS and infrared, we located the convoy's rear vehicle, an SUV with 2 guards inside engine running, to maintain visibility through the storm. They never saw us coming. Torres and his partner neutralized them silently, and suddenly, we had transportation. Phase 1 complete. I reported, though, I wasn't sure if the transmission got through. The storm was playing havoc with communications. We drove forward slowly, following the convoy's tracks. The middle truck loomed out of the darkness like a desert mirage. Armed guards walked alongside despite the storm, protecting their valuable cargo. That's when things went sideways. One of the guards must have noticed something wrong with our approach, because he suddenly raised his weapon. Torres fired first, the suppressed shots barely audible over the storm's howl. But the damage was done. Radio chatter exploded from the convoy confusion orders guards, scrambling to respond to a threat they couldn't see. "Go loud," Torres ordered. "Take them down." The next few minutes were pure chaos. Gunfire erupted from multiple directions as Beta Team engaged Volkov's guards. The storm made everything surreal, muzzle flashes like strobing lights figures, appearing and disappearing in the swirling sand shouts lost in the wind. I fought my way toward the middle truck, muscle memory guiding my actions. A guard materialized from the storm. I dropped him before he could fire. Another tried to flank me. Torres took him out. Then I reached the truck's rear doors. Locked, of course. I attached a breaching charge, praying the storm would muffle the explosion. "Fire in the hole!" The doors blew inward. I entered fast, weapon raised, expecting resistance. Instead, I found Sarah. She stood in the truck's makeshift medical area, a scalpel in her hand and an unconscious guard at her feet. Around her, dozens of victims huddled together, men, women, teenagers, all looking terrified but hopeful. "Took you long enough," Sarah said, and despite everything she was smiling. I was starting to think I'd have to rescue myself. "Still might," I replied, pulling her into a fierce hug. "Storm's covering our escape, but we need to move now." Sarah immediately switched into medical mode, helping organize the victims for evacuation. 3 need immediate treatment, she reported. 4 can't walk on their own. The rest are mobile, but weak. "Beta team converge on the middle truck," Torres ordered over the radio. "We've got packages to extract." As we loaded victims into captured vehicles, Sarah pulled me aside. "Jocelyn, there's something you need to know. Wells wasn't the top of the pyramid. Volkov takes orders from someone else, someone called the Architect." I heard guards talking. "The Architect has plans that go way beyond trafficking." "Did you get a name? Any details?" "No, but..." She pressed a small memory card into my hand. "I managed to copy files from Volkov's laptop when I was treating him last week. Everything's on there. Financial records, communications may be enough to identify the Architect." An explosion nearby cut our conversation short. Through the storm, I could see muzzle flashes. Reinforcements from the front vehicles had circled back. "Time to go," Torres shouted. "Everybody in the vehicles, move." We piled into 3 captured SUVs, victims crammed together, Beta team providing covering fire as we peeled away from the convoy. The storm that had concealed our approach now hid our escape, but it also made navigation nearly impossible. "Base, this is Rodriguez," I called over the radio. "Package secured, multiple civilians extracted, requesting immediate evac coordinates." Static answered me. The storm was blocking communications. We were on our own. "There." Sarah pointed through the windshield. "That rock formation, I remember it from when they transported us. There's a ranger station about 2 miles east. It should have a radio tower." I trusted her memory and directed our convoy toward the formation. Behind us, barely visible through the storm headlights, suggested pursuit. Volkov's remaining people weren't giving up easily. The ranger station materialized from the storm like a miracle, a small concrete building with a radio tower still standing despite the winds. We pulled up outside, Beta team establishing a defensive perimeter while I ran inside with Sarah. The equipment was old but functional. I tuned to the military emergency frequency, praying someone was listening. Any station, this is Viper 17 requesting immediate extraction. Grid reference follows. Viper 17, this is Condor Base." Harrison's voice crackled through the static. "Thank God. We lost you in the storm. Extraction birds are en route, ETA 15 minutes. Can you hold..." Through the window, I could see more headlights approaching through the storm. "We'll have to, sir. Be advised we have approximately 40 civilians requiring medical attention and hostile forces closing in." "Understood. Alpha team has secured the compound, captured significant intelligence. Wells is in custody and talking. Hold your position, Rodriguez. Help is coming." Sarah was already treating the most critically injured victims using supplies from the ranger station's first aid kit. The others huddled together, some crying, some silent with shock, but all finally free. "They're coming," Torres reported from outside. 6 vehicles, maybe more. We've got about 5 minutes before they reach us." I made a decision. Everyone stays inside except the combat team. Torres set up crossfire positions. Use the storm, they can't see us any better than we can see them. The next 15 minutes felt like hours. Volkov's men probed our defenses, firing blindly through the storm. Beta team responded with disciplined fire, making every shot count. The ranger station's walls were peppered with bullet holes, but they held. Jocelyn, Sarah, called from where she worked on an injured teenager. "That memory card, whatever happens, make sure it gets to the authorities. The Architect's operation is bigger than just trafficking. I saw references to weapons, classified technology, things that could..." "Birds inbound," Torres shouted. "Everybody get ready to move." Through the storm's fury, I heard the distinctive thump of military helicopters. Moments later, 2 Blackhawks descended from the swirling darkness door gunners, already laying down suppressive fire. We loaded the victims, first Sarah supervising despite my attempts to get her on the first bird out. Only when the last civilian was aboard did she finally board herself. "Coming?" she asked as I hesitated at the helicopter's door. I looked back at the ranger station at Beta Team, holding the line at the storm that had concealed both horror and hope. "Right behind you," I promised, then turned to Torres. "Fall back by pairs. We leave together." As the last of Beta Team boarded and we lifted off into the storm, I saw Volkov's vehicles finally reach the ranger station. Too late. We were already disappearing into the darkness, 40 souls saved from slavery, my sister finally free. But Sarah was right, this wasn't over. The memory card burned in my pocket holding secrets about the architect. Wells might have been captured, but somewhere out there, another puppet master was pulling strings. "You okay?" Sarah asked, gripping my hand as the helicopter banked north towards safety. "Ask me when we get home," I replied, squeezing back. The storm raged below us, but for the first time in 3 years, my sister and I were together again. Whatever came next, we'd face it as a family. The debriefing at Fort Carson lasted 18 hours. Sarah and I were separated. Initially, she went to medical for a full examination while I was whisked to a secure conference room where General Morrison himself waited with Harrison and a team of intelligence officials I'd never seen before. Sergeant Rodriguez. Morrison began, his usually stern face showing traces of emotion. "I owe you a debt I can never repay. My daughter Jessica is safe because of your actions." "She saved herself, sir," I replied. "Your daughter showed incredible courage." "Nevertheless," he slid a folder across the table, "this is the preliminary analysis of the memory card you recovered. Sarah was right, what she found goes far beyond human trafficking." I opened the folder, scanning the contents. Financial transfers to weapons dealers, technical specifications that looked military grade, coded references to something called Operation Prometheus. The architect, one of the unnamed officials, said, appears to be running a shadow organization that's infiltrated multiple governments and militaries. They're not just selling people, they're selling secrets, weapons, and influence. Wells was middle management, Harrison added, a regional director, essentially. There are others like her embedded throughout the system. "How deep does this go?" I asked. Morrison and the officials exchanged glances. "That's what we need to find out, and we need your help to do it." Before I could respond, an aide entered and whispered urgently to Morrison. His expression darkened. "Wells is dead. Apparent suicide in her cell an hour ago. Guards found her with a cyanide capsule we missed in the initial search." My blood ran cold. "She was murdered. The architect is cleaning house." "Which means," Harrison said quietly, "they know we have the memory card. Rodriguez, you and Sarah are in danger." The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Sarah and I were placed in protective custody, while cyber teams worked to decrypt more of the memory card's contents. It was during this time, sitting in a safe house with armed guards outside, that Sarah finally told me the full story of her 3 years in captivity. "I was so naive," she said, staring into her coffee cup. "When I found those military-dependent victims in Moldova, I thought I could investigate quietly, build an airtight case. I didn't realize how many people were watching." "Wells had flagged you years before," I told her. "You never stood a chance." Sarah nodded slowly. "They grabbed me outside a coffee shop. Professional job, I was unconscious before I even saw them coming. When I woke up, Volkov himself was there. He knew everything about me, about you, about our parents." She paused, gathering strength. "At first, they tried to break me. When that didn't work, they found a different use for my medical skills. I became their traveling doctor, keeping victims alive during transport. It made me sick, but it also gave me access to their systems." "How did you manage to gather so much intelligence?" A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "Volkov was arrogant. He thought I was broken compliant. He'd conduct business calls right in front of me, leave his laptop unlocked when I was treating him. I memorized everything, stored data whenever possible. And the package, the tracking program, that took 2 years to plan. I befriended one of their tech specialists, learned about their systems. When I heard them discussing plans involving you, Wells wanted to use you to access something called the Cerberus database. I knew I had to act. Cerberus database. I hadn't seen that mentioned in the files. Military satellite intelligence, Sarah explained. Real-time global surveillance capability. With your clearance and Wells' manipulation, they could have tracked anyone, anywhere. A knock at the door interrupted us. Harrison entered with Marcus and a woman I didn't recognize Asian features, probably mid-40s, wearing an unremarkable business suit that somehow screamed government agent. Sergeant Rodriguez, the woman said. I'm Director Chen from the Defense Intelligence Agency. No relation to Major Chen here. She nodded at Marcus. We've finished preliminary analysis of the memory card. What we found requires immediate action. She opened a laptop displaying a complex organizational chart. The architect's network has a specific structure. Regional directors like Wells report to continental supervisors. Above them, a council of 5 who report directly to the architect. Do we have identities? I asked. Partial. The memory card contained fragments of communications between council members. Code names only Prometheus, Athena Ares, Hephaestus, and Demeter. But there's something else. She pulled up another screen. 3 days ago, Prometheus sent a priority message to all regional directors. Quote, Asset Rodriguez compromised. Activate contingency 7. Secure Cerberus at all costs. They still want the database access, Harrison realized. Wells failed, so they're moving to Plan B. What's contingency 7? Sarah asked. Director Chen's expression was grim. We don't know, but based on chatter, we're intercepting something big is happening in 72 hours. Marcus spoke up. I might be able to help with that. The memory card had encrypted partitions I've been working on. One just cracked. He typed rapidly, then turned his screen toward us. It's a shipping manifest, military hardware being moved from a depot in Nevada to nowhere. The destination is just coordinates in the Pacific Ocean. That's not nowhere, I said, recognizing the location. That's 7 miles from the U.S. Pacific Fleet's classified submarine testing area. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Harrison was the first to speak. They're planning an attack. Make it look like an accident during testing, maybe foreign sabotage. The chaos would give them cover to access Cerberus while our systems are compromised. We need to stop that shipment, Morrison said. No, Director Chen countered. We need to let it proceed, but under our control. This is our chance to identify Prometheus and potentially the entire council. You want to use it as bait, Sarah said. It wasn't a question. I want to end this network once and for all, Chen replied. But I'll need both of you. Jocelyn, your intelligence access and analytical skills. Sarah, your knowledge of their operations. Together, you're our best shot at identifying the architect. I looked at Sarah. We just found each other again, and now they wanted us to dive back into danger. But I saw the same determination in her eyes that I felt. We're in, we said simultaneously. Over the next 48 hours, we worked around the clock preparing for the operation. The plan was elegant in its simplicity, allow the weapons shipment to proceed while tracking every person who touched it. Hidden transponders, satellite surveillance, cyber monitoring, we'd follow the trail all the way to Prometheus. But 12 hours before the shipment was due to move, everything changed. Ma'am, a technician called to Director Chen. Priority message on a channel we've been monitoring. The message was text only sent to an encrypted forum Wells had used. The sisters survived. Wells is silenced. Contingency 7 compromised. Activate Ragnarok protocol. A. For architect, Harrison suggested. Ragnarok, Sarah whispered. In Norse mythology, it's the end of the world. the final battle where everything burns. Chen was already barking orders. Lock down all military installations. Raise the threat level to... The lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a second later, bathing everything in red light. Marcus's computers screamed alerts. "We're under cyber attack," he reported. "Multiple military networks compromised simultaneously. They're in everything: personnel files, deployment schedules, even nuclear command protocols." "How is that possible?" Morrison demanded. I felt sick as realization dawned. Because they've been planning this for years. Every person Wells and others embedded every access point they created. They're activating all of it at once. On Marcus's screen, I watched military networks around the world flashing red. The architect wasn't just covering their tracks, they were creating global chaos. "Wait," Sarah said suddenly. "The memory card. When I copied Volkov's files, there was one I couldn't decrypt. It had a different encryption key, something about insurance against betrayal." "You think it might have information about Ragnarok?" Chen asked. "Or how to stop it," Sarah replied. As chaos erupted around us, Marcus worked furiously to decrypt Sarah's file. I coordinated with intelligence teams trying to limit the cyber attack's damage. And somewhere out there, the architect watched their plan unfold, believing they'd won. They were wrong. They'd underestimated the Rodriguez sisters. "Got it," Marcus shouted. "The file's open. It's... oh my God." On the screen was a single document, the architect's real identity recorded by Volkov as insurance, a name I recognized, a face I'd seen in classified briefings. The architect was someone at the highest levels of American intelligence, someone who'd been playing all sides for decades, someone who just made their first mistake by activating Ragnarok because now we knew exactly who they were. "Director Chen," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos. "We need to talk to the president, now." The real battle was just beginning. Director Chen's face went pale as she read the name on Marcus's screen. "That's impossible. He's been..." "Director, we don't have time for denial," I interrupted. Deputy Director of National Intelligence Robert Fitzgerald is the architect. He has access to everything, every military network, every intelligence database, every covert operation. The evidence was damning. Volkov's insurance file contained years of communications between him and Fitzgerald, dating back to when Fitzgerald was a CIA station chief in Eastern Europe. He'd built the architect's network from inside the American intelligence community, using his positions to identify assets, eliminate threats, and protect his operations. "Get me a secure line to the White House," Chen ordered, "and lock down this facility. No one in or out until..." The door burst open. Armed men in tactical gear flooded in, but their uniforms were wrong, their weapons foreign. Behind them walked a man I recognized from his official portrait, Robert Fitzgerald himself, tall and distinguished with silver hair and cold blue eyes. "Director Chen," he said calmly as if arriving for a scheduled meeting. "Sergeants Rodriguez, I believe you have something that belongs to me." Our security was already down, unconscious or dead. Fitzgerald's men had weapons trained on all of us. But I noticed Sarah's hand moving slowly toward her pocket, where I knew she kept the emergency beacon from her time in captivity. "Robert," Chen said, standing slowly. "How long?" "Since the beginning," Fitzgerald replied. "Every terrorist we stopped, every crisis we averted, I controlled both sides. Do you have any idea how profitable managed chaos can be?" "You're insane," Morrison spat. "I'm pragmatic. The Cold War ended, but the need for intelligence didn't. I simply created new markets." He gestured to his men. "Kill them all except the Rodriguez sisters. I need them alive to access Cerberus before the system locks down completely." That's when Marcus made his move. He'd been typing quietly at his terminal, and suddenly every screen in the room blazed to life with the Ragnarok protocol's code. "You want Cerberus. Here's what your protocol is really doing." The screens showed military nuclear facilities worldwide, security systems failing, containment protocols deactivating. "You're not just creating chaos," Marcus said. "You're engineering a global nuclear incident. Dozens of facilities will melt down simultaneously." Fitzgerald's composed mask slipped slightly. "Acceptable losses. The resulting chaos will necessitate a complete restructuring of global intelligence. My people are positioned to take control in the aftermath." "Millions will die," Sarah said, her hand now definitely on the beacon. "Billions, actually," Fitzgerald corrected. "But from the ashes, a new order. One I'll control, absolutely." I caught Harrison's eye. He'd noticed Sarah's movement, too. We needed to buy time. "You made one mistake," I said, stepping forward slightly. "You kept Wells alive too long. She talked before she died." "Impossible. The cyanide was replaced with a sedative by our medical team." I lied smoothly. "She gave us everything, including the kill codes for Ragnarok." Fitzgerald studied me, and I saw the calculation in his eyes. He couldn't be sure if I was bluffing. "Then you'll input them now, or I'll have your sister shot in the kneecaps until you comply." "Jocelyn," Sarah said quietly, "remember what Mom used to say about chess?" My breath caught. Our mother's favorite lesson: sometimes the only winning move is to flip the board. Sarah pressed the beacon. Several things happened simultaneously. Emergency alarms shrieked throughout the facility. Marcus's prepared virus, hidden in the Ragnarok code he'd displayed, activated, sending corrupted data back through Fitzgerald's own communication channels. And the lights went out again, plunging us into total darkness. Gunfire erupted immediately. I dropped and rolled, finding cover behind an overturned desk. Emergency lighting flickered on just as Harrison's backup team, who'd been monitoring the situation, breached from multiple entrances. In the strobing chaos of the firefight, I lost track of Fitzgerald. My focus was on reaching Sarah, who'd taken cover near Marcus's workstation. But one of Fitzgerald's men had the same idea, raising his weapon toward her. I didn't think. 7 years of training condensed into pure instinct as I put 2 rounds center mass. He dropped, and I was moving again, reaching Sarah just as she was typing frantically on Marcus's keyboard. "What are you doing?" I shouted over the gunfire. "Fitzgerald was wrong about one thing," she replied. "The Ragnarok protocol has a weakness. It requires constant authentication from his biometrics. If we can isolate his signal—" "Rodriguez," Harrison's voice cut through the chaos. "Fitzgerald's escaping North Corridor." I faced an impossible choice: stay and help Sarah stop Ragnarok, or pursue the man who'd orchestrated our parents' murder, and 3 years of hell. "Go," Sarah said, reading my hesitation. "I've got this. Marcus taught me enough. End this, Jocelyn." I squeezed her shoulder and ran, following Harrison's directions through corridors now filled with smoke and emergency lights. Behind me, the gunfight continued, but ahead lay only silence. The North Corridor led to the facility's helicopter pad. As I burst through the exit door, I saw Fitzgerald climbing into a waiting bird, its rotors already spinning. 2 guards covered his retreat. Time slowed. I raised my weapon, calculations flashing through my mind. Distance, wind movement. The guards saw me and opened fire, forcing me behind a concrete barrier. Chips of cement stung my face as bullets impacted nearby. But their fire was suppressive, meant to keep me pinned until Fitzgerald could escape. They didn't expect me to break cover and charge directly at them. I came up firing, using controlled pairs just like the range instructors had taught. The first guard went down. The second managed to wing me hot fire across my left shoulder before my return fire found its mark. The helicopter was lifting off. Fitzgerald stared down at me through the window, and I saw something unexpected in his expression: approval, like a chess master appreciating a good move from an opponent. I emptied my magazine at the aircraft, knowing small arms fire wouldn't bring it down, but needing to try anyway. The helicopter banked away, gaining altitude, and exploded. The shockwave knocked me flat. Flaming debris rained down as I struggled to understand what had happened. Then I saw her General Morrison's daughter, Jessica, stood on a nearby rooftop with a Javelin missile launcher, flanked by Army Rangers. "That's for trying to kidnap me," she called down, "and for threatening my dad." I lay on the cold concrete shoulder, bleeding, watching Fitzgerald's helicopter burn. It was over. The architect was dead, but Ragnarok was still active. Ignoring the pain, I ran back inside. The firefight had ended. Fitzgerald's men were down or surrendered. In the control room, Sarah and Marcus worked frantically while Director Chen coordinated with nuclear response teams worldwide. "Jocelyn." Sarah looked up as I entered. "Fitzgerald's dead." "Very," I confirmed. "What's our status?" "Bad," Marcus replied. "Without Fitzgerald's biometrics, the protocol is degrading but not fast enough. We've got maybe 20 minutes before the first reactor loses containment." "There has to be a way," Chen insisted. "These systems have safeguards, which Fitzgerald spent years subverting," Sarah interrupted. "But," she paused, staring at the code. "The memory card, the one I gave Jocelyn. It had fragments of Fitzgerald's personal encryption keys. If we could reconstruct his digital signature..." Marcus was already pulling up the data. "It's partial, but maybe..." "Sarah, you're brilliant. Help me with this algorithm." As they worked, I slumped against the wall, exhaustion and blood loss catching up. Harrison appeared with a medic who began treating my shoulder. "Wells really is dead," he told me quietly. "Suicide, just like they said, but she left something behind, a letter for you." He handed me an envelope. Inside, Wells' precise handwriting filled a single page. "Jocelyn, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. The architect demands it the price of failure. I won't apologize for what I've done, but I will tell you this. Your parents discovered my involvement. I had them killed to protect myself. It's the one decision that haunts me. You and Sarah were never supposed to be hurt. I tried to protect you both in my way, but the architect had other plans. There's a facility in Alaska, coordinates below. Everything we've gathered over the years is stored there. Use it to destroy what I helped build. You were the daughter I never had. I'm sorry I was the mother you never wanted. Patricia." I crumpled the letter, rage and grief warring inside me. Even in death, Wells couldn't stop manipulating, couldn't stop pretending her crimes were somehow noble. "Got it," Marcus shouted. "Fitzgerald's signature reconstructed. Uploading now." On the screens, red alerts began turning yellow, then green. Nuclear facilities worldwide reported containment, restored systems normalizing. The Ragnarok protocol was dying, taking Fitzgerald's mad dream with it. "It's over," Chen breathed. "It's actually over." But Sarah shook her head. "Not yet. Fitzgerald had 5 council members. We've only identified him and Wells. 3 more are out there, plus their entire network." She was right. We'd cut off the head, but the body remained. The architect was dead, but his legacy of corruption and trafficking lived on. "Then we keep fighting," I said, standing despite the medic's protests. "We use Wells' information, everything Sarah gathered, all of it. We tear this network apart piece by piece." Chen nodded slowly. "I'll need a new task force. People I can trust, absolutely. I don't suppose you two would be interested." Sarah and I exchanged glances. 3 years ago, we'd been separated by violence and lies. Now we had a chance to work together to honor our parents' memory by destroying the organization that had killed them. "When do we start?" we said in unison. 6 hours later, after medical treatment and initial debriefs, Sarah and I stood on the roof of Fort Carson's main building, watching the sunrise paint the mountains gold. The world had come within minutes of catastrophe, and most people would never know. "Think we can really do it?" Sarah asked. "Destroy the entire network?" I thought about Wells' letter about the facility in Alaska, about 3 council members still operating in the shadows. It would take years, maybe decades. But for the first time since our parents died, I felt like we had a real purpose. "Together," I said, taking my sister's hand. "Absolutely." As the sun climbed higher, casting light into the shadows where evil had thrived, the Rodriguez sisters prepared for war. The architect was dead, but his empire remained. Time to flip the board. 3 weeks after Fitzgerald's death, Sarah and I stood in the frozen wasteland of northern Alaska, staring at what looked like an abandoned Cold War radar station. According to Wells' coordinates, this was where the Architects Network had stored decades of intelligence blackmail material and operational data. Thermal imaging shows the underground levels are still powered. Reported Captain Lisa Park, the former Navy SEAL Chen, had assigned to our new task force. Whatever's down there, someone's been maintaining it. Our team consisted of 8 specialists, each vetted through the most rigorous background checks in intelligence history. Trust was our scarcest resource. Fitzgerald's betrayal had shaken the entire intelligence community to its core. No external security, noted David Kim, our cyber warfare expert who'd worked alongside Marcus to stop Ragnarok. Either they're very confident or it's a trap, Sarah finished. Wells knew she was going to die. This could be her final manipulation. I studied the building through binoculars. Only one way to find out. Park, take your team through the main entrance. Sarah and I will check the emergency exit on the north side. Kim, monitor all frequencies. If this place sends out any kind of alert, I'll jam it, he confirmed. We moved in formation across the frozen ground. The emergency exit was exactly where the building plans said it would be a heavy steel door, marked only by decades of rust. Sarah examined it with tools from her medical kit repurposed for infiltration. Basic magnetic lock, she reported. But there's something else. Jocelyn, look at this. Scratched into the rust was a message, "For the daughters of those I wronged, P.W." Patricia Wells had marked this entrance specifically for us. The lock disengaged with Sarah's manipulation, and we descended into darkness. Emergency lighting flickered on, revealing a staircase that spiraled down far deeper than any radar station should require. 5 levels down, we found the first body. Suicide. Sarah diagnosed examining the remains. Maybe 2 weeks ago. Cyanide like Wells. The corpse wore civilian clothes, but his equipment was military grade. A cleanup specialist probably sent to destroy evidence after Fitzgerald's death. We found 6 more bodies as we explored the facility, all suicides, all recent. They were ordered to die rather than be captured, I realized. Even in death, the architect maintains operational security. The facility's main level was a vast server room combined with physical archives, thousands of files, decades of secrets enough blackmail material to control governments. But at the center of it all was something unexpected. A conference room with 5 chairs around a table. One chair had a placard reading Prometheus, Fitzgerald. Another read Athena, presumably Wells. The other 3, Ares, Hephaestus, and Demeter, sat empty. This is where they met, Sarah breathed. The council. Look at the walls. Every surface was covered with maps, photos, and documents. The entire architect network laid out in obsessive detail. But there were gaps, faces obscured, names redacted. The 3 remaining council members had been careful to protect their identities, even from each other. Boss, Park's voice crackled over the radio. You need to see the sub-basement. We found something. The sub-basement made my blood run cold. It was a medical facility, but not for healing. Examination tables with restraints, surgical tools, drains in the floor for easy cleaning. They experimented on people, Sarah said, her voice tight with controlled rage. Tested compliance drugs, interrogation techniques. This is where they perfected their methods. I found a logbook, the clinical entries detailing horrors in bureaucratic language. Subject 247 resistance to compound XB7 noted increasing dosage. Subject 189 successful memory suppression achieved, recommended for field implementation. Jocelyn, David Kim called from the server room. I've cracked their primary database. You're not going to believe this. The database contained profiles on thousands of military personnel, government officials, and intelligence operatives worldwide. Each profile included psychological assessments, financial records, family vulnerabilities, and a percentage indicating corruption probability. My own profile showed 12%. Low probability, strong moral compass inherited from parents. Recommend elimination if becomes threat. Sarah's was more chilling 3%. Negligible probability. Extreme idealism coupled with medical oath. Useful only as leverage against sister. Approved for kidnapping operations. They had everyone categorized, Kim explained. Look at this algorithm. It predicted who could be turned based on hundreds of factors. Financial stress, family illness, career disappointments, personality traits. They were shopping for assets like picking groceries. Can you identify the remaining council members from this? I asked. Working on it. But there's something else. Recent communications show the network isn't collapsing, it's consolidating. The 3 remaining council members are pooling resources, possibly selecting a new architect. Park returned from deeper in the facility. Found a detention area. 20 cells all empty now, but she handed me a collection of personal effects. These were left behind. Dog tags, wedding rings, children's photos, mementos of the lives destroyed in this place. Among them, I found something that made my hands shake. A photo of my parents taken at their last anniversary dinner. On the back in Wells' handwriting, collateral damage regretted, but necessary. We're taking everything, I decided. Every file, every hard drive, every scrap of evidence. This place dies today, but its secrets come with us. The team worked through the night cataloging and removing evidence. Sarah found medical records proving Fitzgerald's network had provided enhancement drugs to terrorist organizations, prolonging conflicts for profit. Kim discovered financial records showing billions in hidden accounts across 60 countries. As dawn approached, we prepared to leave, but the facility had one last surprise. Hidden in Fitzgerald's personal archives, Sarah found a sealed envelope addressed to me. Inside was a single page and a small key. Jocelyn Rodriguez. The letter read, "If you're reading this, I'm dead and you've proven worthy of the truth. The architect was never one person, it was an idea. Cut off one head, 2 more appear. The key opens deposit box 1247 at Credit Suisse in Zurich. Inside, you'll find the real names of the remaining council. But beware, they know you're coming. The hunt has already begun. RF." Even in death, Fitzgerald was playing games. But the key was real, the bank was real, and 3 killers still walked free. "It's a trap," Sarah said immediately. "He wants us to go to Zurich." "Of course it is," I agreed, "but it's also our only lead. The question is, do we spring the trap or find another way?" Kim had been working his magic on the facility's computers. "Wait, I found something. Hidden partition on the main server. It's shipping manifests." We crowded around his screen. The manifests showed regular shipments from this facility to 3 locations, a vineyard in France, a tech company in Singapore, and a ranch in Argentina. The council members, Park realized. They were receiving intelligence packages from here. These could be their operations bases. Now we had choices. Follow Fitzgerald's breadcrumbs to Zurich or split up and investigate the 3 locations. Either path could lead to answers or death. "We can't split up," Sarah insisted. "That's what they want to divide and conquer." But as I studied the shipping dates, a pattern emerged. The last shipments to all 3 locations had been sent on the same day, the day after I'd retrieved Sarah from Mexico. "They knew," I said slowly. "The moment we disrupted the convoy, they started preparing. These aren't just shipments, they're evacuation notices." "So we're already too late?" Park asked. "No," Sarah said, understanding dawning in her eyes. "They're running, which means they're vulnerable. Scared people make mistakes." I made the decision. We hit all 4 locations simultaneously. Park, your team takes Singapore. Kim put together a cyber team for France. Sarah and I will handle Argentina and Zurich. I smiled grimly. Let's give them the surprise they're not expecting. Within hours, we were airborne, the Alaska facility rigged to implode once we were clear. Behind us, Fitzgerald's chamber of horrors collapsed into rubble, burying its secrets in permafrost. But the hunt was far from over. 3 council members remained free, their network wounded but not dead. They'd killed our parents, tortured my sister, and threatened global security for profit. The Rodriguez sisters were coming for them all. As our plane climbed into the Arctic dawn, Sarah squeezed my hand. Think Mom and Dad would be proud? I thought about the evidence we'd gathered, the lives we'd already saved, the justice we'd delivered. But mostly, I thought about two sisters who'd refused to let evil win. They'd be proud we found each other again, I said. The rest is just cleanup. Sarah laughed, the first genuine laugh I'd heard from her since her rescue. Just cleanup. We're hunting three of the most dangerous people on the planet. Together, I reminded her. They don't stand a chance. The plane banked south, carrying us toward whatever waited in Argentina. In my pocket, Fitzgerald's key seemed to pulse with possibility. The game was still in motion, but for the first time we were playing offense. The hunters had become the hunted, and the Rodriguez sisters never missed their mark. The Argentine ranch sprawled across 2,000 acres of pampas grassland, its main compound barely visible through our surveillance equipment. Sarah and I lay prone on a hillside studying the layout while our local asset, a former Argentine intelligence officer named Miguel Santos, provided context. Estancia Luna Roja, he said quietly. Owned by shell companies for 30 years. The locals avoid it. People who get too curious disappear. Through our scopes, we could see armed patrols, sensor grids, and what looked like an underground bunker entrance. This wasn't a ranch, it was a fortress. Thermal imaging shows 40-plus signatures, Sarah reported. But look at the pattern. Most are concentrated in the east wing. Prisoners, I suggested? Or staff. The real question is, which council member is this Ares Hephaestus or Demeter? My encrypted phone buzzed. Park checking in from Singapore. Tech company was a front. Found evidence of Hephaestus' real name, Liu Wei, former Chinese MSS. Already gone, but left interesting breadcrumbs. Forwarding intel. Another message from Kim in France. Vineyard belongs to Demeter Marie Dubois, ex-DGSE. Escaped 2 days ago, but her lieutenant is talking. Ares is the primary threat. That meant our target was Ares, the god of war. Appropriate for a fortress. Movement, Sarah warned. Convoy approaching from the south. 3 vehicles, heavy armor, diplomatic plates. As they entered the compound, I caught a glimpse of the passenger in the middle vehicle. My blood chilled. That's General Volkov, I breathed. Russian GRU supposedly died in Chechnya 5 years ago. Ares, Sarah concluded. He faked his death to run the architect's military operations. Miguel's phone rang. He listened briefly, then paled. My contacts say Volkov just arrived with buyers. They're auctioning something big tonight. What kind of auction? I asked. Weapons, but not just any weapons. They say he has American military prototypes stolen directly from development facilities. The pieces clicked. Volkov hadn't just run military operations, he'd been stealing classified weapons and selling them to the highest bidder. With Fitzgerald dead, he was liquidating assets. We need backup, Sarah said. This is bigger than a capture mission. But I was already seeing the opportunity. No, we need to get inside that auction. If we can identify the buyers, we can roll up Volkov's entire customer network. That's insane, Miguel protested. The security will be focused on the buyers. I finished. They'll be watching for rival bidders and law enforcement, not a couple of sisters looking for revenge. Sarah studied me. You have a plan. Always. Miguel, we need identities as arms dealers. Preferably Eastern European with enough credibility to get through the door. I might know someone, he said reluctantly, but this is suicide. 3 hours later, Sarah and I were transformed. Designer clothes, subtle makeup, fake tattoos, suggesting Bratva connections. Miguel's contact had provided us with legends as the Petrova sisters' weapons, brokers from Moldova with connections to the Odessa network. Your Russian better be perfect, Miguel warned as he drove us toward the compound. Volkov will test you. Spasibo za bespokojstvo, I replied flawlessly. Thanks for your concern. Years of intelligence training had benefits. The compound's security was even tighter up close. We passed through 3 checkpoints, each more thorough than the last. At the final checkpoint, they took blood samples. DNA verification, the guard explained in accented English. The general is very careful. Sarah and I exchanged glances. If they ran those samples against any database... But we were waved through. The main house was a study in contradictions, elegant architecture, housing brutal people. Armed guards stood at every corner while servers circulated with champagne. The other buyers were a rogues gallery of international criminals, cartel representatives, terrorist financiers, rogue state proxies. "Ladies Petrova," a smooth voice said behind us. We turned to find Volkov himself, shorter than I'd expected, but radiating controlled violence. I wasn't aware the Odessa network was invited. "Money is always invited," I replied in Russian, matching his cold smile. "We heard you had something special tonight." He studied us with eyes that had seen too much death. "Indeed, but first a question. How is your uncle Dmitri? I haven't seen him since the incident in Mariupol." A test. There was no Uncle Dmitri. "Dead," Sarah answered smoothly. "The Mariupol incident was his last mistake. We run the family business now." Volkov's smile widened slightly. "Of course. Welcome. The auction begins in 30 minutes. I think you'll find the merchandise explosive." He moved on to greet other buyers. I activated the subcutaneous transmitter Kim had provided, broadcasting everything we heard to the backup team positioned outside. "Check the walls," Sarah murmured. "Those aren't just decorations." She was right. What looked like art pieces were actually weapons advance prototypes displayed like trophies. A railgun system, directed energy weapons, and in the center, something that made my stomach drop, a briefcase marked with U.S. military classification stamps. "Nuclear," Sarah breathed. "Worse," I realized, recognizing the specifications. "That's the prototype for Project Damocles, a satellite weapon system that could target any location on Earth with kinetic strikes. It was supposed to be theoretical only." "Not anymore," Volkov announced, calling the room to attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, shall we begin?" The buyers gathered in what had been a ballroom, now converted to a high-tech presentation space. Volkov stood at the front, flanked by guards and display screens. "For 20 years, the Architects Network has provided you with the finest military hardware," he began. "Tonight, in honor of our fallen leader, we offer the crown jewel of our collection." The screens lit up with technical specifications, satellite imagery, and demonstration videos. Project Damocles in all its terrifying glory. "Bidding starts at 200 million, Volkov announced. "Who will give me—" The lights cut out. In the darkness, I heard Sarah moving. We'd rehearsed this during the planning phase, 30 seconds of chaos to accomplish our real mission. Emergency lighting flickered on to reveal havoc. Several buyers were unconscious, taken down by Sarah's medical knowledge of pressure points. Others were scrambling for weapons. And standing by the main exit was Captain Park's strike team. "Nobody move," Park commanded. "This is a joint operation by—" Gunfire erupted. Volkov's men engaged Park's team while buyers scattered. In the chaos, I saw Volkov himself making for a side exit, the Damocles briefcase in hand. "Sarah with me?" I shouted, pursuing him. We chased Volkov through the compound's labyrinthine corridors. He was fast for an older man, and he knew the layout. But we had desperation and years of training. The chase led to the underground bunker entrance we'd spotted earlier. Volkov input a code and dove through just as we reached him. The heavy door began sliding shut. Sarah and I exchanged a look, then dove through together, barely clearing the closing barrier. We landed hard in a concrete corridor. Ahead, Volkov was already running, but he'd made a mistake. This was a dead end, leading only deeper into the bunker. "Give up, Volkov," I called out. "Your buyers are captured. The network is finished." His laugh echoed off the walls. "You think this is about money?" The architect had vision. A world where conflict is managed, controlled, profitable. We cornered him in what looked like a command center. Screens showed feeds from around the world, other facilities, other operations. The network was bigger than we'd imagined. "Even now my message is going out," Volkov said, hand on a console. "Activation codes for every sleeper agent, every hidden weapon. If I die, the world burns." "You're bluffing," Sarah said. "Am I?" He smiled. "Your parents thought I was bluffing too, right before I ordered the truck to hit them." The rage that filled me was ice cold, but before I could act, Sarah moved, not with violence, but with her medical kit. A small dart flew from her hand, embedding in Volkov's neck. "Paralytic agent," she explained calmly as he collapsed. "He'll be conscious but unable to move for hours. Plenty of time to verify his claims and extract information." I looked at my sister with new respect. "When did you—" 3 years as a captive doctor teaches you things," she said grimly. "Now let's see what doomsday scenario he's really running." Kim's voice crackled through our communicator. "Jocelyn, Sarah, we've got control of the compound. 17 buyers in custody, massive intelligence haul. But you need to see this. We found detention cells. There are people here." 20 minutes later, after disabling Volkov's dead man switch, he had been bluffing. We stood in the bunker's detention area. 15 cells held various prisoners, some recent captures, others who'd been there for years. "My God," Sarah whispered, immediately going into medical mode. "Some of these people, they've been tortured." One prisoner caught my attention, a woman in her 50s, dignified despite her circumstances. She looked familiar. "You're Jocelyn Rodriguez," she said in accented English. "Patricia Wells spoke of you." "You know Wells?" "I'm Sofia Castellano, Interpol. I've been hunting the Architects Network for 10 years. They captured me 6 months ago." She gestured to the other cells. "We're all investigators who got too close. Volkov liked to keep trophies." "We freed them all," Sarah, providing immediate medical attention while I coordinated with Park's team. The intelligence haul from the compound was staggering: financial records, customer lists, sleeper agent identities. "Jocelyn," Kim called from the command center. "I've cracked Volkov's personal files. You need to see this." The files contained communication between the 3 remaining council members after Fitzgerald's death. They'd been planning to reunite at a specific location, an oil rig in international waters, retrofitted as a mobile command center. That's where they're regrouping, I realized. Liu Wei and Marie Dubois are heading to that rig. "It's a fortress on water," Park observed, studying the specifications. "Taking it would require a major military operation. Or," Sarah said thoughtfully, "a very clever infiltration. Volkov was supposed to join them after this auction. They don't know he's captured yet." I saw where she was going. "We could take his place, get aboard before they realize the network is collapsing." "That's extremely dangerous," Sophia warned. "These people have survived this long by being paranoid." "They've also survived by being arrogant," I countered. "They think they're untouchable." Volkov, now secured and under guard, was conscious enough to glare at us. "You'll never get aboard," he managed through the paralysis. "The verification protocols will be handled by the best cyber team in the world," Kim interrupted. "We own your systems now, General. Every code, every protocol, every secret." I looked around at our assembled team: soldiers, hackers, investigators, and my sister. We'd come so far from that birthday package that had started everything. "Prep a boat," I decided. "We're going to finish this, all of it." As we prepared for the final assault, Sarah pulled me aside. "Jocelyn on that rig. There's no backup coming. If something goes wrong, then we improvise," I said. "Just like always. Besides, I've got the best partner in the world watching my back." She smiled, and for a moment I saw the sister I'd grown up with, not the survivor of 3 years of hell, but the girl who'd helped me build tree houses and decode secret messages. "Let's go end this," she said. Outside helicopters were arriving to transport prisoners and evidence. Volkov would face justice for our parents' murder and countless other crimes. But 2 council members remained free, and they held secrets that could still destroy lives. The Rodriguez sisters had one more hunt to complete. The oil rig designated Neptune's Throne rose from the South China Sea like a steel mountain. At 0300 hours, Sarah and I approached in a supply vessel using Volkov's codes and biometric data Kim had synthesized from the captured samples. Behind us, a naval task force waited just beyond the horizon, close enough to respond, but far enough to avoid detection. Remember, Director Chen's voice crackled through our concealed earpieces. We need both council members alive. The intelligence they possess could help us unravel sleeper cells worldwide. Understood. I replied, though part of me wanted nothing more than to watch them burn. The rig's security was everything we'd expected. Automated defenses, armed personnel, scanning systems that would make Fort Knox jealous. But we had Volkov's access codes and a cover story backed by his captured communications. General, a guard greeted us at the platform. Madame Dubois and Mr. Liu are waiting in the conference room. I nodded curtly, channeling Volkov's arrogance. Sarah played the role of his aide, carrying the briefcase that supposedly contained the Damocles prototype. In reality, it held flashbang grenades and zip ties. The rig's interior was utilitarian but sophisticated. We passed server rooms humming with activity security stations, monitoring global operations, and residential quarters that suggested long-term occupation. This wasn't just a meeting point, it was a command center for the new architect. Conference Room Alpha sat at the rig's heart, a windowless chamber lined with blast-proof walls. Inside, two figures waited at a circular table. Liu Wei looked exactly like his intelligence photos, mid-60s silver hair, eyes that miss nothing. Marie Dubois was younger, perhaps 50, with the kind of elegant beauty that could disguise ruthlessness. Dimitri Dubois said in French-accented English, "We were beginning to worry. The Argentine auction..." "Successful," I replied in Volkov's clipped tone, though there were complications. "There always are," Liu observed. "Please sit, we have much to discuss." Sarah and I took seats across from them. The door sealed automatically, standard security or a trap, I couldn't tell. The Rodriguez sisters continue to be problematic. Dubois began sliding a tablet across the table. On it were photos of Sarah and me from just days ago. They dismantled Wells' operations, eliminated Fitzgerald, and now they're hunting us. "Let them come," I said, maintaining character. "I've killed them once, I can do it again." Liu's eyes narrowed slightly. "Once, a test." I smiled coldly. "Their parents, the truck accident. Though technically my men did the actual killing." "Of course," Liu murmured, but something in his expression had changed. Dubois leaned forward. "We need to discuss succession. The architect is dead, but the architecture remains. One of us must take control." "Agreed," Liu said. "I propose we..." Sarah moved. The briefcase opened and flashbangs flew across the room. In the confined space, the effect was devastating. Both council members recoiled, temporarily blinded and deafened. I was already moving zip ties in hand, but Liu Wei hadn't survived decades in intelligence by being easy prey. Even disoriented, he rolled away from my grasp, producing a pistol from somewhere. Sarah tackled Dubois, who was reaching for an alarm button. They went down in a tangle of limbs, my sister's medical knowledge giving her the edge as she found pressure points that dropped the French woman. Liu's gun swung towards Sarah. I didn't think I just threw myself between them. The bullet caught me in the vest, knocking me back but not penetrating. The impact still felt like being hit by a sledgehammer. "Federal agents," I gasped out. "You're under arrest." Liu actually laughed. "On what authority we're in international waters, little girl?" "On the authority of every life you've destroyed," Sarah snarled, having secured Dubois. She faced Liu with her own weapon drawn. "Drop the gun." For a moment, we had a standoff. Then Liu's expression changed, becoming almost sad. "You know what the real tragedy is?" he said. "We created something magnificent, a network that transcended nations that could have brought order to chaos, and you've destroyed it for what Revenge. For my parents, I said, getting back to my feet despite the burning pain in my ribs. For every family you tore apart, for every person you sold, for basic human decency. Decency, Lou spat. The luxury of those who've never had to make hard choices. Do you know why I joined Fitzgerald? Because I watched my government sacrifice thousands to maintain stability. At least with the architect, the suffering had purpose. It was profitable. You're insane, Sarah said. No. Dubois spoke from the floor, her voice calm despite being restrained. We're pragmatists. The world runs on exploitation. We just systematized it. An alarm began blaring. Not from the conference room, but throughout the entire rig. Dead man's switch, Lou said with satisfaction. The moment our biometrics registered distress, the evacuation protocol began. In 10 minutes, this rig self-destructs, taking all the evidence with it, including us. You're bluffing, I said. You wouldn't I? I'm 73 years old, facing life in prison. I'd rather die than rot in a cell. He gestured to the sealed door. That won't open until the protocol completes. We're all going to burn together. Sarah was already at the door's control panel. It's locked down tight. Kim, are you getting this? Working on it, Kim's voice came through our earpieces. But the rig's systems are isolated. I need direct access. Can you defuse the self-destruct? I asked Lou. Could, won't. He sat back in his chair, still holding the gun, but no longer pointing it at us. Though I admit having the Rodriguez sisters die with us has a certain poetry. The task force is 8 minutes out, Chen reported. They're scrambling helicopters. Too late, Lou observed. The charges are in the rig's support structures. When they blow, this entire platform will collapse in seconds. I looked at Sarah. We'd survived so much only to be trapped by one last act of spite. But my sister was studying Dubois with her medical eye. You're scared, she said suddenly. Your pupils are dilated, breathing rapid. You don't want to die. Dubois said nothing, but her body language confirmed Sarah's assessment. Marie, I said, switching tactics. You're 52 years old. You could live another 30 years. Are you really going to let Liu's death wish take you down? The cause, Dubois began. The cause is dead, Sarah interrupted. Fitzgerald's gone. Wells is gone. Volkov's captured. The network is finished. But you could still live. Help us stop this and we'll testify to your cooperation. Liu laughed bitterly. Don't listen to them, Marie. They're desperate. So are you, I shot back. Desperate to take everyone with you because you can't face the consequences of your actions. 4 minutes, Kim warned. The charges are armed. I can't stop them remotely. Dubois closed her eyes. When she opened them, resignation had replaced fear. The override is biometric. Both Liu and I have to authorize it. The panel is hidden behind the architect's seal. Liu's gun swung toward her. Traitor! I moved years of training condensed into one fluid motion. My hand closed on Liu's wrist, forcing the gun up as it fired. The bullet sparked off the ceiling as we grappled for control. Sarah was already at the wall, finding the hidden panel behind a metal seal bearing Fitzgerald's personal emblem. Got it, Marie. I need you here. But Liu was stronger than his age suggested and desperate. We rolled across the floor, the gun between us. I could hear Sarah working frantically, Dubois' voice providing codes. 2 minutes, Kim shouted. Liu's finger found the trigger again. This time I couldn't redirect it completely. The bullet grazed my shoulder, sending white-hot pain through my arm, but the pain just made me angrier. I brought my knee up hard, making Liu gasp. The gun flew from his grip, skittering across the floor. Before he could recover, I had him in a chokehold. Override accepted, Sarah yelled. But it needs Liu's biometric too. I dragged the semi-conscious Liu to the panel. Sarah grabbed his hand, pressing it to the scanner while Dubois entered final codes. 30 seconds, Kim counted down. 20, 15. Come on, Sarah muttered. Come on. The panel beeped. Red lights turned green. Throughout the rig, alarms shifted from evacuation warnings to stand-down signals. Self-destruct aborted, Kim confirmed. Task force is 3 minutes out. I released Liu, who collapsed, gasping. He looked up at me with something like respect. You would have made an excellent council member, he wheezed. I'd rather stay human, thanks, I replied. The conference room door unsealed. Moments later, task force operators flooded in, taking Liu and Dubois into custody. Medics appeared fussing over my injuries while Sarah supervised. It's over, Chen's voice came through the comm. Both council members in custody, rigs secured. Outstanding work, Rodriguez sisters. But as they led Liu away, he called back, You think you've won. The Architects Network was just one of many. Others will rise. They always do. Maybe, I admitted, but we'll be ready for them. The debriefings lasted weeks. Liu Wei and Marie Dubois, faced with overwhelming evidence and the promise of slightly reduced sentences for cooperation, began revealing the true scope of the Architects Network. What emerged was staggering decades of operations across 6 continents, thousands of compromised officials and financial assets exceeding $50 billion. Sarah and I worked 18-hour days analyzing intelligence, identifying sleeper agents, and coordinating with international partners to roll up cells. Each revelation led to 3 more. The network hadn't just trafficked people and sold weapons, they'd manipulated elections, started conflicts, and assassinated reformers who threatened their profits. Another cluster identified. David Kim announced projecting a map onto the briefing room wall. Red dots appeared across Southeast Asia. Dubois' interrogation revealed an organ harvesting ring operating out of Myanmar. They've been targeting refugees from the recent conflicts. Strike team ready, Park reported. Local authorities are cooperating. We can hit them within 12 hours. Chen nodded approval. Do it. What else? Liu gave up the location of 3 weapons caches. I added. Each contains enough military hardware to equip a small army. DHS and ATF are moving on the 2 in the States. The one in Romania, already handled, a new voice said from the doorway. Sofia Castellano entered looking healthier than when we'd freed her from Volkov's prison. Interpol raided it this morning, recovered surface-to-air missiles that were slated for delivery to separatist groups. The successes mounted daily. Bank accounts frozen, safe houses raided, corrupt officials arrested. The network that had seemed invincible was crumbling, its members turning on each other in desperation to save themselves. But the human cost remained staggering. Every cache we uncovered, every cell we dismantled, revealed more victims. Sarah threw herself into the medical response, working with international organizations to provide care for trafficking survivors. 1 month after the oil rig operation, I found her in a military hospital checking on a group of children we'd rescued from a facility in Thailand. How are they? I asked. Physically, they'll recover, she said, exhaustion evident in her voice. Psychologically, that takes longer, maybe forever. I watched her gentle interactions with the kids, saw how they trusted her instinctively. My sister had survived 3 years of hell and emerged with her compassion intact. It was remarkable. There's news from Zurich, I told her. Remember Fitzgerald's safety deposit box? Swiss authorities finally cleared us to access it. Sarah looked up sharply. The one with the supposed council member names. Director Chen wants us to check it personally. Our flight leaves in 6 hours. Sarah glanced back at the children. One little girl, maybe 8 years old, clutched a stuffed rabbit Sarah had given her. They need continuity of care, Sarah said. Someone they trust. Dr. Patterson can... It's fine, Sarah interrupted, though I could see the conflict in her eyes. The kids come first. You go to Zurich. Just be careful. Even dead Fitzgerald's still playing games. I understood. Sarah had found her purpose in healing those the network had broken. My purpose remained in ensuring no one else would suffer the same fate. 24 hours later, I stood in a vault beneath Credit Suisse Sofia Castellano, beside me as witness. The bank manager, a precise man who'd clearly dealt with unusual requests before presented the deposit box. This account was established 47 years ago, he explained. Payments have been made annually to maintain it. The last access was, he checked his records, 3 years ago. 3 years, just before Sarah's kidnapping. Fitzgerald had been planning even then. The box opened to reveal several items, financial documents, photographs, and a sealed envelope marked, "For the hunters who succeed." Inside the envelope was a handwritten letter. "Congratulations! If you're reading this, you've dismantled what took decades to build. I'm either dead or imprisoned. The Architects' Council, scattered or captured. You've won this round." But ask yourself, why was it so easy? A network that survived 50 years doesn't fall in 50 days unless it wants to. Every person you've captured, every cache you've found, did you really think we didn't have contingencies? The Architect was never about the people. It was about the idea that in a chaotic world, someone must impose order, that human nature demands exploitation, so better to manage it than pretend it doesn't exist. You've cut away the diseased tissue, but the body remains. New leaders will rise, new networks will form, and someday someone will open another deposit box, read another letter, and the cycle will continue. Enclosed, you'll find the real gift complete financial records for every government official who knowingly used our services. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, CEOs, the pillars of the legitimate world who needed our darkness to maintain their light. Publish these and watch civilization tear itself apart. Hide them and become complicit in the cover-up. Either way, the Architect wins. Your move, hunters. Robert Fitzgerald. My hands trembled as I examined the financial records. They were authentic, devastating, implicating hundreds of powerful figures across the globe. Leaders who'd publicly championed human rights while secretly profiting from trafficking. Military officials who'd sold weapons to their own enemies. Business executives who'd used slave labor while preaching corporate responsibility. My God, Sophia breathed. If this gets out, governments will fall. I finished. Allies will turn on each other. The chaos could destabilize entire regions. It was Fitzgerald's final gambit, mutually assured destruction for the legitimate world that had enabled his shadow empire. What do we do? Sophia asked. I thought about Sarah healing broken children, about our parents killed for stumbling onto the truth, about Wells who'd manipulated our grief while pretending to care, about every life destroyed by the Architects' network. Then I thought about the 8-year-old girl clutching her stuffed rabbit, trusting my sister to keep her safe. We do what's right, I decided, not what's easy. Back in Washington, an emergency meeting convened. Directors from every major intelligence agency, the Attorney General representatives from the White House. The evidence I'd recovered sat in the center of the table like a live grenade. The debate raged for hours. Some wanted full disclosure transparency at any cost. Others argued for a gradual release targeting the worst offenders while protecting critical allies. A few suggested destroying everything, protecting the stability they claimed society needed. You're talking about covering up crimes, I said when I couldn't stay silent any longer. These people enabled trafficking, murder, exploitation. They deserve justice. And the innocents who'll suffer when their governments collapse, the Secretary of State countered. The wars that might start. The extremists who'll fill the power vacuums. Where's their justice? Sarah had joined us by then, flown in from the hospital. She studied the room of powerful people debating realpolitik and spoke with the moral clarity that 3 years of witnessing evil had given her. The children I treat don't care about global stability. They care about feeling safe, about knowing the people who hurt them will face consequences. Every compromise we make tells them their suffering matters less than our comfort. So what do you suggest? Director Chen asked. Sarah and I exchanged glances. We discussed this on the phone, two sisters trying to find wisdom in an impossible situation. Controlled disclosure, I said. We use the evidence to force cooperation from those implicated. They step down, face appropriate justice, and help us identify other networks. Those who refuse get exposed publicly. Blackmail them into doing the right thing, someone scoffed. Give them a choice, Sarah corrected. Redemption or revelation. Some will take the deal, others won't. But at least the victims will see justice beginning. It wasn't perfect. Nothing could be. But over the following months, the strategy worked better than expected. Faced with exposure, dozens of officials quietly resigned. Some fled to non-extradition countries. Others surprisingly confessed and provided valuable intelligence about other criminal networks. The architect's financial assets were seized and redistributed to victim support organizations. Sarah led the effort to establish trauma centers in regions hit hardest by trafficking. I continued working with the task force, using the network's own methods to identify and dismantle similar operations. 1 year after that birthday package arrived, I stood in Arlington National Cemetery. Sarah beside me, we placed fresh flowers on our parents' graves. Wells had confessed to ordering their deaths in her final letter, but knowing the truth didn't make the loss easier. Think we made a difference, Sarah asked. I thought about the thousands freed from slavery, the weapons kept from terrorists, the children in Sarah's care who were learning to smile again. We gave them justice, I said. Not perfect, not complete, but real. And Fitzgerald, Sarah wondered. Was he right about the cycle continuing? Maybe, I admitted. But he was wrong about one thing. It wasn't easy. Every life we saved, every trafficker we stopped, we fought for each victory, and we'll keep fighting. Sarah took my hand. Together, always, I promised. As we walked back through the cemetery, my phone buzzed. Another case, another network to investigate. Evil hadn't ended with the architect's fall. It had just lost one of its many faces. But the Rodriguez sisters were still on the hunt. And we'd learned from the best how to win. 6 months into the controlled disclosure operation, the consequences of our decision rippled across the globe. In Germany, a defense minister resigned after evidence surfaced of his involvement in arms trafficking. In Japan, 2 corporate executives were arrested for facilitating forced labor. In Brazil, an entire police unit was disbanded after their connections to the architect were exposed. Sarah and I had become the unofficial face of the operation, the sisters who'd brought down a shadow empire. It wasn't a role we'd sought, but it gave us a platform to advocate for survivors and push for stronger international cooperation against trafficking. I was reviewing intelligence reports in our D.C. office when Chen burst in. Her usual composure cracked. "We have a problem," she announced. Liu Wei escaped during a prisoner transfer in Hong Kong. 3 guards dead, 2 wounded. My blood chilled. How? Inside help. Someone in the Hong Kong security services was still loyal to the architect. Liu's been free for 6 hours. He'll go underground, I said, mind racing. Contact his remaining assets, maybe try to rebuild. No, Chen interrupted. He sent a message, specifically for you. She handed me a tablet. On it was a video message. Liu sitting in what looked like a warehouse, his prison uniform replaced by an expensive suit. Jocelyn Rodriguez, he began. By now, Director Chen has informed you of my liberation. I could disappear live comfortably on hidden funds your investigation missed, but that would be admitting defeat. He leaned forward, eyes glinting with malice. You took everything from me. My network, my purpose, my future. It seems only fair I return the favor. Check your sister's location. You have 1 hour. The video ended. I was already calling Sarah, but her phone went straight to voicemail. Her GPS tracker, which we'd both agreed to wear after the oil rig incident, showed her at a medical conference in Philadelphia. Get me a team, I ordered, and patch me through to the conference security. But the security office didn't respond. Neither did the Philadelphia police when we tried to contact them directly. Liu had planned this carefully. I'm coming with you, Chen said. Director, you can't. That's an order, Rodriguez. Liu escaped on my watch. We end this together. The helicopter flight to Philadelphia took 37 minutes. 37 minutes of imagining what Liu might do to Sarah. 37 minutes of blaming myself for not anticipating this. Park's voice crackled through comms. Conference center security footage shows Sarah leaving with 2 men 3 hours ago. Voluntary, no signs of struggle. They must have threatened someone to make her comply. Of course, Sarah would never risk innocence even for her own safety. The tracker led us to an abandoned pharmaceutical plant on the outskirts of the city. As our tactical team surrounded the building, memories flooded back: another warehouse, another trap, our parents dying because someone wanted to send a message. Thermal imaging shows 12 signatures, Park reported. Spread throughout the building, can't identify which is Sarah or Liu. He wants me to come in, I said. This is about revenge, not escape. He'll have demands. As if on cue, my phone rang. Unknown number. 1 hour exactly. Liu's voice purred. Punctual as always. Your sister is alive, though that status depends on your cooperation. What do you want? Justice. You destroyed a network that took 50 years to build. You turned allies against each other, shattered carefully maintained balances. Do you have any idea how many people will die because of the power vacuums you created? Fewer than your network killed, I shot back. Naive child. We controlled the flow of violence, channeled it productively. Now it runs wild. But that's a philosophical debate for another time. Come inside, alone, unarmed. You have 5 minutes before I start removing your sister's fingers. The line went dead. Absolutely not, Chen said immediately. We go in full force. And Sarah dies, I finished. Liu's not bluffing. He's lost everything. This is his last play. I'll go key, Park volunteered. Tactical insertion, take him out before... No, I said firmly. This is my fight, my family. But I'm not going in blind. Kim, can you hack the building's old security system? I need eyes inside. Already on it, Kim replied from the mobile command unit. Cameras are mostly dead, but got one. 3rd floor, east corner. The grainy feed showed Sarah tied to a chair in what looked like an old laboratory. Liu stood beside her, along with 6 armed men. But something was off about Sarah's positioning. She's signaling, I realized. Sarah's fingers, where Liu couldn't see them, were moving in our childhood code. 8 total, 4 north stairwell weapons, standard Liu desperate. She was giving me tactical intelligence even as a hostage. My brilliant, brave sister. I'm going in, I decided, but not alone. Park, your team takes the north stairwell on my signal. I'll keep Liu focused on me. Rodriguez, Chen began. Director, with respect, Sarah and I started this journey together. We'll finish it the same way. I left my weapons outside, hands raised as I entered the building. The interior reeked of rust and chemical decay. Following Liu's shouted directions, I climbed to the 3rd floor, passing his stationed guards, who watched me with professional detachment. The laboratory door stood open. Inside, Liu waited with Sarah and 2 guards. My sister's eyes met mine, conveying volumes in a glance. She was hurt, but mobile, ready to act when the moment came. The famous Jocelyn Rodriguez, Liu said. You know, I studied you extensively after Fitzgerald's death. Your psychological profile was fascinating. Duty-driven, family-oriented, tactically brilliant, but emotionally vulnerable. Whereas you're just a bitter old man who can't accept that he lost, I replied. Liu's face darkened. I didn't lose. I was betrayed. By Fitzgerald's arrogance, Wells' incompetence, and finally by Dubois' cowardice. The idea of the architect was perfect, only the people failed it. The idea was slavery dressed up in philosophy. Sarah spoke for the first time. I spent 3 years watching your controlled violence. Children sold like cattle, women broken for profit, men worked to death. That's your legacy. Liu backhanded her, the crack echoing in the room. Rage flooded through me, but I forced myself to remain still. You want me, I said. Let her go. Eventually, first a demonstration. Liu pulled out a tablet. This device controls explosive charges throughout the building, but more importantly, it's connected to similar devices in 12 cities worldwide. Former architect facilities your investigation hasn't found yet. My blood ran cold. You're lying. Mumbai, Lagos, Mexico City. Would you like me to demonstrate a warehouse here, a dock facility there? Minimal casualties, just enough to prove the point. Those facilities could have innocents. There are no innocents, Liu snarled. That's what you never understood. Everyone is compromised. Everyone participates in the system willingly or not. The architect just acknowledged reality. He showed me the tablet screen, a timer counting down from 10 minutes. When this reaches 0, all 12 facilities detonate. Unless... He smiled coldly. You take responsibility. Confess that you and your sister fabricated evidence against the architect, that the network was a legitimate intelligence operation you destroyed for personal revenge. I have a camera crew standing by. Your confession will be broadcast globally. No one would believe that, I said. Some would, enough to muddy the waters, create doubt. Your investigation would be tainted, convictions overturned. The network's survivors could rebuild. His eyes gleamed. Or refuse and watch 12 buildings burn. How many janitors work night shifts? How many homeless shelter nearby can your conscience bear that weight? I looked at Sarah. She gave an almost imperceptible shake of her head. Don't do it, her expression said. Don't let them win. But Liu had misjudged us again. He thought we were still the grieving daughters who'd walked into Wells' trap. He didn't realize how 3 years of hunting monsters had changed us. You made 2 mistakes, I said calmly. First, you assumed I came alone. Liu frowned. My men control. Gunfire erupted from below. Park's team moving on the signal I'd given, touching my ear 3 times during our conversation. Second, I continued as Liu's guards raised their weapons uncertainly. You forgot that Sarah's a doctor. My sister moved. The entire time Liu had been monologuing, she'd been working on her restraints, using a scalpel she'd palmed from the medical conference. Free now, she rolled sideways as I dove for the nearest guard. The laboratory erupted into chaos. I grappled with one guard while Sarah used her medical precision to disable another with pressure points. Liu scrambled for the tablet, but I kicked it across the room. The timer, Liu shouted. You fools, it's automated without the abort code. One of his guards made the mistake of pointing his weapon at Sarah. 3 years of rage crystallized into a single moment as I broke his arm and used his own weapon to drop him. The other guard fell to Sarah's improvised chemical attack. She'd grabbed old bottles from the lab shelves, creating a cloud of noxious smoke. Liu dove for the tablet. I tackled him, both of us rolling across broken glass and debris. He was stronger than his age suggested, but I had desperation and training. We fought viciously, neither gaining clear advantage until Sarah appeared above us. Enough, she said quietly, holding a syringe. Liu, this contains a paralytic agent. Cooperate or spend your last minutes conscious but unable to move. Liu froze. In that moment of hesitation, I secured the tablet. 4 minutes remained on the timer. The abort code, I demanded. Liu laughed bitterly. There isn't one. I told you I've lost everything. If I burn, the world burns with me. Kim, I shouted into comms, I need you to remotely access this device. 12 locations, explosive charges, 3 minutes, 50 seconds. On it, Kim replied, but the encryption, this is military grade. Sarah knelt beside Liu, checking his injuries with clinical detachment. You know what I learned during my captivity? She asked conversationally. That men like you always have an escape plan. You wouldn't risk dying in your own trap. She began checking his pockets, finding a second phone. On it was an app matching the tablet's interface but with additional options. He was going to abort it remotely once clear, she said quickly, navigating the menus, but it requires biometric confirmation. Liu tried to resist as I forced his thumb onto the scanner. The first attempt failed. His struggles made the read incomplete. 2 minutes, Kim warned. Park's team burst through the door, weapons trained on Liu. Secure. Not yet, I said through gritted teeth. Sarah grabbed Liu's hand with medical precision, holding it perfectly still as I pressed his thumb to the scanner again. This time it worked. The timer froze at 1:17, then began counting backward from 10, an abort sequence. All facilities standing down, Kim confirmed. Charges disarmed, local authorities moving to secure the locations. Liu sagged in defeat. The last council member of the architect had fallen. As Park's team took Liu into custody and medics checked Sarah's injuries, I found myself staring at the abandoned laboratory. This was where it ended, not with some grand final battle, but with a desperate old man's failed gambit in a derelict building. "You okay?" Sarah asked, joining me. Just thinking. Liu was right about one thing: there will always be another network, another architect, another threat. Maybe, Sarah agreed, but there will also be people like us to stop them, and we're getting better at it. Director Chen entered, surveying the scene. "Outstanding work, both of you. Liu's capture gives us the remaining cells he was protecting. This really might be the end of the architect's network." "What about the 12 facilities?" I asked. "Raids in progress. Initial reports suggest 2 were active trafficking sites. You saved dozens of lives tonight, perhaps hundreds." But the victory felt hollow. Our parents were still dead. Sarah had still lost 3 years. Thousands had suffered while the architect operated in shadow. "There's something else," Chen said quietly. "With Liu's capture and the evidence recovered, the Attorney General is prepared to make you both a formal offer. Permanent positions leading a new interagency task force focused on transnational criminal networks, full resources, governmental backing, international cooperation." Sarah and I exchanged glances. It wasn't the life we'd planned before that birthday package arrived, but it was the life we'd earned through blood and sacrifice. "Partners?" I asked my sister. "Always," and she confirmed. We accepted on the spot. The aftermath of Liu's capture triggered a cascade effect throughout the criminal underworld, like dominoes falling. The architect's remaining cells collapsed as members fled, surrendered, or turned on each other. Sarah and I worked around the clock, coordinating with international partners to capitalize on the momentum. In Berlin, German special forces raided a shipping company that had been trafficking weapons to conflict zones. In Singapore, authorities froze accounts containing $2.3 billion in laundered funds. In Sao Paulo, a judge who'd been protecting trafficking routes for 15 years was arrested in his own courtroom. But it was the 12 facilities Liu had rigged to explode that provided the biggest intelligence windfall. "Unbelievable," David Kim said, showing us the data from a facility in Mumbai. They kept everything: transaction records, client lists, even performance reviews for their criminal employees. Sarah studied medical records from the same facility. They were experimenting with memory suppression drugs, trying to create more compliant victims. Her voice was steady, but I saw her hands tremble slightly. "Any sign of current victims?" I asked. 47 across all facilities, Park reported. All rescued receiving medical treatment. Sarah's trauma protocols are being implemented globally. It had been Sarah's innovation, a standardized treatment program for trafficking survivors based on her own experiences and medical expertise. What had begun as therapy for her fellow captives had evolved into an international standard of care. My phone buzzed. Director Chen. "Rodriguez, we have a situation. Marie Dubois is requesting to speak with you, both of you. She says she has information about a fail-safe Fitzgerald created." An hour later, Sarah and I sat across from Dubois in a federal holding facility. The former French intelligence officer looked older, grayer, as if prison had aged her years and months. "Why talk now?" I asked. "Because Liu's capture changes things," Dubois replied. "With all council members neutralized, certain automated protocols will activate. Fitzgerald was paranoid even by our standards. He created insurance policies we never fully understood. Such as..." Dubois leaned forward. "Have you wondered why taking down the architect was ultimately so easy? A 50-year network doesn't fall in less than 2 years unless it was designed to..." Sarah finished. "Fitzgerald mentioned something similar in his letter. Precisely. He called it the Phoenix Protocol. If the architect fell, something worse would rise from its ashes. He embedded sleeper agents not just in governments, but in the very task forces hunting us. My blood chilled. You're saying we have moles in our own operation? I'm saying Fitzgerald spent 20 years placing people who genuinely believe they're doing good. They don't know they're compromised. Psychological conditioning triggered by specific events. The complete collapse of our network was one such trigger. How do we identify them? I demanded. Dubois smiled sadly. That's why I asked for you both. Fitzgerald kept the list in his personal archives, not the ones you found his real archives, hidden in plain sight somewhere that would survive any investigation. Where? Sarah asked. I don't know, but Wells did. She mentioned it once said Fitzgerald hid his greatest secrets where his journey began. I assumed she meant Langley, but searches there found nothing. Back at headquarters, our team dove into Fitzgerald's history. Born in Boston, educated at Yale, recruited by CIA straight from graduation. His early career was exemplary Cold War operations, Soviet defections commendations for valor. Wait, Marcus said suddenly. Look at this gap. Between Yale and CIA, there's 6 months unaccounted for. No employment records, no addresses. Kim's fingers flew across his keyboard. Found something. A police report from Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Robert Fitzgerald, age 22, questioned in connection with a smuggling operation. Never charged, but the address... What about it? I asked. It's a lighthouse. Still standing, still owned by... Kim's eyes widened. A shell company connected to the architect. Within hours, Sarah and I were driving through a New England storm toward Fitzgerald's lighthouse. Chen had wanted to send a full team, but something told me this required a personal touch. Fitzgerald had been obsessed with symbolism. If he'd hidden his failsafe here, it would be protected by more than just locks. The lighthouse stood on a rocky promontory, waves crashing against its base. Inside, it had been converted into a sophisticated safe house living quarters communication equipment, and according to our scans, a concealed basement level. He came here, Sarah said, studying the space. Recently. There's dust on everything except certain paths. Someone's been maintaining specific areas. We found the basement entrance behind a bookshelf, cliché but effective. The stairs descended into darkness. At the bottom, a single room weighted its walls, lined with filing cabinets and servers. His real archive, I breathed. But standing guard over it all was a portrait not of Fitzgerald, but of a young woman. Early 20s, dark hair, hauntingly familiar eyes. Sarah found the nameplate Elizabeth Fitzgerald, 1952-1974. His sister, I realized. She died the year he joined CIA. Among the files, we found the truth. Elizabeth hadn't just died, she'd been murdered, killed by human traffickers when she'd tried to help a friend escape from a forced marriage. Fitzgerald's descent into darkness had begun as a quest for justice that twisted into something monstrous. He created the architect to control what had killed his sister, Sarah said quietly, then became the very thing he'd set out to destroy. The Phoenix Protocol files were there as Dubois had promised. 14 names of deep cover assets placed in law enforcement and intelligence agencies worldwide, people who genuinely believed in justice but had been psychologically programmed to protect certain criminal enterprises when triggered. My God, I said, recognizing one name. She's on Chen's personal staff. We immediately contacted headquarters, initiating lockdown procedures. Over the next 72 hours, all 14 sleeper agents were identified and detained. None of them even knew they'd been compromised. Fitzgerald's conditioning was that sophisticated. But there was more in the lighthouse archives. Financial records showing the architect's money flowing into legitimate businesses, tech companies developing surveillance software, pharmaceutical corporations working on next-generation compliance drugs, security firms positioning themselves for government contracts. He was right, Sarah said grimly. Cut off one head, 2 more appear. These companies will continue the architect's work through legal means. Then we adapt, I said. We've spent 2 years learning to fight in the shadows. Now we learn to fight in the light. The storm had passed by the time we emerged from the lighthouse. Dawn broke across the Atlantic, painting the sky in shades of hope. We'd found Fitzgerald's final trap and disarmed it. The Phoenix Protocol would birth no new monsters. "Think that's really the end?" Sarah asked as we loaded evidence into our vehicle. I thought about the journey we'd taken from a birthday package to a lighthouse in New England, from grieving daughters to international investigators. We'd lost so much but saved so many. Of the architect. "Yes," I said. "Of evil people doing evil things, never. But that's why we keep fighting." Sarah nodded. "Together." "Always together." As we drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror at Fitzgerald's lighthouse. It would be demolished, its secrets exposed, its symbolism erased. But Elizabeth Fitzgerald's portrait would be preserved, a reminder that even the worst monsters often begin as people seeking justice. The difference between us and Fitzgerald wasn't our trauma or our anger. It was that we had each other. Where he'd fallen alone into darkness, we'd pulled each other toward the light. The architect was dead. Long live those who guard against the next one. 1 week later, the task force held a memorial service for all of the architect's victims. Thousands of names were read aloud, people from every corner of the globe whose lives had been stolen or destroyed. Sarah and I stood together as our parents' names were spoken, finally able to mourn properly now that justice had been served. After the service, Chen approached us with a thick folder. "What's this?" I asked. "Intelligence reports. 3 new trafficking networks have emerged in the power vacuum. A weapons smuggling ring in Eastern Europe is expanding operations. A cybercrime syndicate is targeting military families." She paused. "I understand if you need time." "No," Sarah interrupted. "We're ready." I nodded agreement. The architect was gone, but our work continued. Evil would always exist, but so would those willing to fight it. "Send us the files," I said. "The Rodriguez sisters are on the case." As we walked back to our office, I felt our parents' presence, not as victims of the architect's cruelty, but as the people who'd raised us to fight for what's right. Their deaths had started this journey. Our choices would determine where it led. "Ready for the next hunt?" I asked Sarah. She smiled, the expression fierce and determined. Always. The war against the architect was over. The war against evil continued. And we were just getting started. 6 months after the lighthouse discovery, the world had changed dramatically. The complete exposure of the architect's network had triggered reforms in intelligence agencies worldwide. New oversight protocols, international cooperation treaties, and survivor protection programs became the lasting legacy of our investigation. Sarah and I stood in the renovated headquarters of the International Anti-Trafficking Task Force, the organization that had grown from our original team. What had started with 8 people now employed over 300 specialists across 15 countries. The Singapore team just reported in, Marcus announced. They've rescued 43 victims from a shipping container. The network was trying to fill the void left by Liu's operation. "Medical teams?" Sarah asked. "Already en route using your protocols," Park confirmed. "Initial assessment shows all victims are stable." I smiled at my sister. Her trauma treatment program had become the global standard, saving countless lives. She'd turned her nightmare into a healing force that rippled across the world. "There's something else," Chen said, entering with an envelope. "This came through diplomatic channels, addressed to you both." Inside was an invitation printed on expensive cardstock. The UN Secretary-General was requesting our presence at a special assembly to discuss creating a permanent international body dedicated to combating human trafficking. "They want us to lead it?" Sarah read, her voice stunned. "Full autonomy, resources from member nations' authority to operate across borders." It was everything we'd dreamed of, the power to hunt evil wherever it hid, backed by the full weight of international law. But I saw the conflict in Sarah's eyes, the same weight I felt. We'd been fighting for so long, the idea of a normal life seemed foreign. "We don't have to decide today," I said gently. That evening, we returned to Arlington to visit our parents' graves. The headstones now included a simple addition, "Their courage lives on in their daughters." "What would they want us to do?" Sarah asked. I thought about our mother who'd spent her life teaching, our father who'd believed in justice but also in joy. They'd want us to be happy, not just righteous. "They'd want us to choose," I said. "Not out of duty or guilt, but because it's what we truly want." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "I've been thinking about opening a clinic, something permanent where survivors can heal long-term. But also—" She hesitated. "I met someone, Dr. Patterson from the children's ward. He asked me to dinner." I smiled, and I said yes. "It terrifies me more than facing down Liu did." She laughed nervously. "Is that crazy?" "No," I said, thinking of my own tentative steps toward normalcy. "It's human. We've spent so long fighting monsters we forgot we're allowed to live too." "What about you?" Sarah asked. "Director Chen mentioned Interpol has been courting you. Full autonomy to build your own division." "They have," I admitted. "But there's also a teaching position at Quantico, training the next generation of investigators. Regular hours, weekends off, a chance to maybe have a life outside the hunt." We stood in comfortable silence, processing the choices before us. The Rodriguez sisters had options beyond revenge and justice. We could choose happiness. A week later, we gave our answer to the UN. Sarah would consult part-time while building her clinic. I would split my time between teaching and field operations. We'd help build the new organization, but not let it consume us. The announcement ceremony was held in New York. Survivors, investigators, and government officials from around the world attended. But the most meaningful moment came when a young woman approached us afterward. "You don't know me," she said in accented English, "but you saved my life. I was in the truck your sister treated people in Mexico. You gave me hope when I had none." She was studying social work now, planning to help other trafficking survivors. One life saved, creating ripples of positive change. It was the architect's complete opposite, building networks of healing instead of harm. I stood before my class at Quantico teaching behavioral analysis to a room full of eager FBI trainees. On my desk sat photos Sarah at her clinic's 5th anniversary, surrounded by staff and former patients. My wedding photo with James, the prosecutor who'd helped convict Liu. Sarah holding her newborn daughter named Amanda after our mother. The most important thing to remember, I told my students, is that evil evolves. The architect fell because they became arrogant, believing their system was perfect. But new networks are already forming. Your job is to evolve faster. One trainee raised her hand. "Professor Rodriguez, is it true you and your sister brought down the entire network in less than 2 years?" "No," I said firmly. "We were part of a team that included hundreds of dedicated people, and it wasn't just about bringing them down, it was about building something better in its place." My phone buzzed. A message from Chen, now Secretary General of the International Anti-Trafficking Coalition. New network identified, Southeast Asia. They're using cryptocurrency and dark web markets. We need the Rodriguez sisters. I smiled, typing back, "Send me the files. I'll review after my daughter's recital." Because that was the real victory. Not just that we'd destroyed the architect, but that we'd refused to let it destroy us. We'd found love, built families, created lives worth living. After class, I drove to Sarah's clinic. It had expanded to 3 buildings, treating not just trafficking survivors, but anyone who'd experienced severe trauma. Sarah had recruited specialists from around the world, creating a beacon of hope where darkness once reigned. Aunt Jojo. My 6-year-old niece, Amanda, raced into my arms. She had our mother's eyes bright with curiosity and kindness. "Ready for ice cream?" I asked. "Mommy says we're celebrating," Amanda announced. "Something about bad people getting caught." Sarah appeared medical coat over her dress. "The network Chen identified. The locals just raided their main facility, 300 victims rescued, all because your training program identified the trafficking patterns. We exchanged satisfied smiles. Even in our civilian lives, we continued the fight, just differently than we'd imagined. That evening, our extended family gathered for dinner. Sarah's husband, Michael, my husband, James, our children, and the chosen family we'd built from our task force days. Park now leading her own FBI division. Marcus and Kim, who'd started a tech company dedicated to helping law enforcement track criminals. Even Sofia Castellano retired from Interpol but still consulting. A toast. James proposed, raising his glass. To the Rodriguez sisters, who proved that justice and happiness aren't mutually exclusive. To family, Sarah countered. All kinds of family. As we clinked glasses, I thought about our journey. From a birthday package to a global movement, from grieving daughters to mothers ourselves, from hunting monsters to building futures. Amanda tugged on my sleeve. Aunt Jojo, will you tell me the story about how you and Mommy saved the world? We didn't save the world, sweetheart, I said, pulling her onto my lap. We just made it a little bit better, and someday you'll make it even better than that. How? She asked with 6-year-old seriousness. Sarah answered for both of us, by choosing to be kind, by standing up for people who can't stand up for themselves, by remembering that every person matters. It was the lesson our parents had taught us, refined through fire and loss. The architect had believed in controlling evil. We believed in something stronger, empowering good. Later that night, after the children were asleep and the guests had gone home, Sarah and I sat on her porch watching the stars. Any regrets? She asked. None, I said honestly. I wish Mom and Dad could meet their grandchildren, Sarah said softly, but I think they'd be proud of who we became. Not just who we became, I corrected, who we're still becoming. Because that was the real truth. The hunt never truly ended, it just changed form. Where once we'd hunted criminals with guns and handcuffs, now we hunted ignorance, with education trauma, with healing despair, with hope. My phone buzzed again. Another case, another network, another threat, but also another opportunity to make a difference. I silenced it. Tomorrow would be soon enough to return to the hunt. Tonight was for family, for peace, for the life we'd fought so hard to earn. In the distance, a shooting star traced across the sky. Sarah grabbed my hand, squeezing gently our childhood signal that everything would be okay. And it would be, because the Rodriguez sisters had learned the greatest lesson of all. The best revenge against evil isn't just destroying it. It's living well despite it. It's building something beautiful from the ashes. It's choosing hope over fear, love over hate, life over mere survival. The architect was gone, but our story continued. And every chapter we wrote proved that light ultimately conquers darkness, especially when sisters stand together. Thank you, Sarah said quietly. For what? For never giving up on finding me, for believing I was alive, for becoming the person who could save me. Thank you, I replied, for surviving, for staying strong, for becoming the person who could save others. We sat in comfortable silence, two sisters who'd walked through hell and emerged not unscathed, but unbroken, ready for whatever tomorrow might bring. What would you do if you discovered someone you trusted had been deceiving you all along? Have you ever had to choose between justice and safety? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more powerful stories of courage, resilience, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that even in our darkest moments, hope can prevail. Thank you for joining Jocelyn and Sarah on their incredible journey. Remember, we all have the power to stand against injustice and protect those we love. Until next time, stay strong, stay vigilant, and never give up on what's right.